say thank you for honoring our invite. But before we start, there are some of the rules. I hope we are seeing. Okay. Thank you, Mulai. Do we need to bring them closer or we're okay as it is? Do we have deaf in the room? Specifically, do we have anyone who requires sign language interpretation? Do we have? I know they can't hear, but if you're seated next to them, you might know. I just need confirmation. Tuite majina. Tuite majina. Rose, hata kamera ikuone. Tuko on set. Tumekosa watu. Watatupea cue. Tumekuwekea seat hapa mbele. I can see people walking out, coming in. Is there anyone seated who feels they need to go out? Hello? Hello? I have just remembered I didn't introduce myself. My name is Sonia Aima. I work for the Institute of Social Accountability. I know majority of the people in the room, except the young people. But we are happy to have you. As was guided earlier, Mulai mentioned that this is a set. And for a set, the guidance or the rules that she mentioned are very important to enable the quality of the production happening today. And that's the reason why I'm asking, is there anyone seated who feels they need to go and take something outside before we start? Yes. You want to go? Good. Please go. His hand imenishtua. And for Rose, please call anyone outside to come in. You want to go? Good. Please go. His hand imenishtua. And for Rose, please call anyone outside to come in. Na imekuja late. I believe this is our cue. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you once again, especially Shosho Manyanga, who came in later. We appreciate you for being the eldest in the room. It's not a budget town hall. But this is a town hall for our standard John. So we're able to achieve a couple of things, but most importantly is that we will all live here with one factual information about what is going on currently, and you will speak out of facts and not rumors. How many of us have had the conversations on finance bill? How many of us know that there are 2 finance bills out there? Si tumeisikia? The finance bill experts are saying hakuna mtumba mahali, but the people in the mtumba are saying there is mtumba mahali. Are we together? Si tumeisikia? So today we are hoping we are going to live here with facts and not mtumba iko ama haiko. Sawa sawa. But most importantly, I hope whatever you came here for, you will also be able to achieve it. If you have questions, Mulai earlier mentioned that we will be having a plenary session. If something has not been touched on and you believe unaitaka kabisa, please find a way to ask it. Utoke hapa ukiwa na very key information. As I continue, I also want to welcome or appreciate, aside from all of you seated here, we have the partners that we have worked with to make this possible. As I mentioned, this is convened by TISA, but we have worked with partners like the ones who are standing on our very extremely digital gadgets. Budget News Story. We also have Haki Jamii, the representative from Haki Jamii. Are you here? Happy to have you. Budget Talk Global. I know you, so I don't need to ask. And then we have KPAT. Wow, wanajipenda. You see, they're all raising their hands. And then we have, as mentioned earlier, Budget News Story. We hope to get this story out there and get our voices out there. As I continue to say, in this current era, I believe from April 30th, one of the key things that Treasury has or is supposed to be doing is to create platforms for people to engage. Aside from publishing the document, they are required to convene such convenings. But tunajua pia budget yetu inakuanga kidogo. So that's where partners like us also come in to create the narrative and help you and I to understand these documents better. When they speak about it, it's too technical. Ama mi pia niko technical hapa? Am I technical? I'm not yet there. But when they speak about it on the televisions or whatever places we meet with them, they will always say we got the understanding wrong. The English for us is too heavy. But today we are creating a space for all of us. Tukianza na kina Shosho Manyanga, and the youngest person who has accepted she's the youngest. All of us live here together with the one understanding. And each one of us has to live with that aspect. Yenye unasikia, hii naye ni yangu. 3 years ago, when I was working for an institution that was working with young women in universities, one of our key selling points was lipstick. Because that's an important aspect. The youngest. See, lipstick is a big thing. Yeah. So that was our key selling point. When you go to buy makeup, say we know you can buy ponds for 50 shillings, but itakuharibu uso mbaya. Ukweli uongo. Everything is possible, si ndio? Hata gel, kuna mahali unatengenezewa na so mbili. Si ni ukweli? Alafu, what happens to your nails after the so mbili? Unaona tu kitu ina grow uko chini. Hata uelewi ni nini, but bado utaendea so mbili juu huwezi fika ya 500. So in our current state, we are also budgeting in our own ways. But we are here to talk about the national budget, which all of us contribute. How do we contribute? Shosho Manyanga, umelipa taxes how many years? For those of us who don't know Shosho Manyanga, that's Shosho Manyanga. I don't even know her actual name. I believe Shosho Manyanga amelipa tax very many years. I hope tukiongea leo, you will be able to tell us kama hiyo tax ilifika kwa mlango yako for all the years. Sindio, Shosho? Yes. So as we continue to talk here, the question for us is to break the secrecy around all these things and break it to the simplest form where all of us can understand. Additionally, we are also here to sit and discuss what are those areas of priorities that you believe need to be from where you sit. In our houses, we have ways where we budget. Rent inakuanga namba, because bila rent hakuna mahali unaishi. Then nini inafuata? Food. Food ama school fees. Unaona venye tuko na mbili hapo. That's how our government of the day also is asking. Which of the two, school fees or rent? Transport, food, we have health. So we are also going to look at what are those areas that have been prioritized. And the way you know which one is highly prioritized is by how much is given to that specific sector. Sawa sawa? And then sisi wenyewe pia tutajiuliza, do you think they need to budget for this more or this other one that has not been prioritized? And this is a safe space for us to discuss what we feel. For the young people in the room to benefit from kina Shosho Manyanga, kina Jen, so that hata sisi tukianza hii kazi for the next of our lives, we are doing it for the benefit of the people who are not in this room. And what I also want us to leave here with is that whatever ideas you have are important, but you need to find a way to also take it out there. Tukiifanya hapa ndani, yes, we are live streaming, so it's going beyond you. But in your locality, are people aware that the current budget estimates are there? Do they know that the finance bill is what is going to help us achieve that budget that is going to come? So it is our mandate, given or not given, to be able to push that information further to people. Sawa sawa. And lastly, when we get governments to office, we are signing an invisible contract. Ama siku hizi ni visible? Still very invisible, sindio? John is saying it's visible. Uko kwenu mnaisign? It's very visible. Tunaandika tu tick alafu tumeenda. Then tungoja another body katikati ikuje tuambie tick ya nani ilikuwa mingi. So as we sign that invisible social contract, remember, once you sign it, kazi yako haiishi hapo. We have to be there. We have to be present to make sure that everything that was promised is actualized. And the only way to be actualized is through what we are currently discussing. So as we talk, I hope there's someone who knows how many things our current regime, from the top to the bottom, has promised. And I hope you leave here going to look at that budget, trying to see if it is considered in the budgeting that's going to help us achieve the next financial year. I hope that's enough to guide us on what to expect. But I am really interested. I don't know, this shooting thing might not be my forte, but I am hoping if a mic is closer to someone, if I can just get one person to share what is that thing that motivated them to come here today? Just so that I know I have the right people in the room. What is the one thing that motivated you today to come here, either at 8 or at 9:10? Anyone? Yes. There's a hand. The one with the mic, please move. Keep your hand up. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Mko salama? My name is John Mwangi from Dagoretti. So kitu motivate kukuja hapa ni about story ya health in Dagoretti, for example. Stories of mental health services. We have a level 4 hospital, but we don't have an active mental health services. But Nairobi County is supposed to equip your hospital level 4 with fully equipped mental health services zikuwe na madaktari, but currently hatuna saizi. Okay. So that's why na follow up nisikie story ya budget kaita. This stories za mental health zitakuwa ziko hapo.
Good. So he's saying yeye interest yake, thank you. His interest is in health. Na number 1 already, that is his priority. So as we look into the budget, luckily for you, health is one of the prioritized sector. But we really hope it will trickle down all the way to that hospital that you have mentioned in Dagoretti. But we hope that you will get an answer from here today. And that's enough. The next session that's supposed to come, so that I don't speak a lot by myself, we are supposed to have a panel session that's going to help us unpack all this. There is the current financial year yenye tunamaliza. Wangapi hii budget wameisikia? How many of us felt the implementation of the budget in their pocket this financial year that's ending? When you had the State House required 2 billion, extra 2 billion, how did you feel? Pressure. Sayo unaangalia we mkate imefika 65, una negotiate. Lakini wanahitaji 2 billion. How much was spent by the Office of the Deputy President, just transport? And the most important one is how much has been lost and we've checked and we've not found them. But we need to increase, sindio? So as of now, iyo mauchungu yote, we look at last year as we project the next. Sawa sawa. So the session is going to be moderated by my colleague Angela Wangeshi, who has a couple of people who are going to help her break down all that information. And as we leave here, the team that's supporting with rapporteuring will have picked all the recommendations that are both coming from the panel, but also from the audience of the room. I want to take this opportunity to welcome Miss Angela Wangeshi, our PFM lead from TISA. And then I will welcome Eva. Your name is just here. I don't need to check. So Eva Madai from Budget Talk Global. And then we have, Bunge la Mwananchi. The president is here, James Mulamba. And lastly but not least, Valentine Mweni, the programs officer, Haki Jamii. Karibu sana. So as they get the mic, I hope we will all give them our attention. As guided to concentrate, do tupate maswali za kujibu, sindio? Our friend from Dagoretti, we hope you will also be listening so that you get to hear. The people from the university, you want to know how much has been put for you, sindio? So we need to all be attentive and not miss out on anything that is going to be discussed. So I hand this over to Angela.
Thank you, Sonia. Before we start, we have one more panelist, Michael Odwar from KPAT. Karibu sana.
That's on me, sorry.
Yes, and as Michael comes, tumesoma budget. Tumepatana nayo. Okay, tumepatana na stories za budget huko kwa mitandao. Hiyo inakaa ndio majority tumepatana nayo. Which is good because, tuko kwa era ya technology na ni vizuri tuitumie vizuri. So my call for all of us, najua ni document ndefu, lakini naomba tu tusome. Because the problem we have most of the times, finance bill inakuja, and the issue we are experiencing right now, kila mtu anasoma finance bill, lakini hakuna mtu anafuata pesa zinatumika aje. And that is where we start. Because the budget shows us the government priorities. How is our money going to be used? I know we are taxpayers, I know it's painful, but we cannot run away from paying taxes. But can we have an idea of what our taxes are doing? And that's why, for us, we didn't start with the finance bill conversation. We want to first see, how is our money going to be used? And that's why we are here today. And my panelists, they have been introduced, but I would like to hear from each one of us before we go back to our citizens. Kwa hizi budget decisions zote that have been made this year, which one do you personally have a concern, the biggest concern about, and which one gives you hope? Because I know most of the times we are just looking at, the negative side of things. So what is good? What is one good thing you have seen in the budget, and which is one concern? And I'll start with you, Eve.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eve Madai. I am a co-founder of an organization known as Budget Global. I am also a member of the Right to Food Coalition, so I'm very interested in issues to do with the right to food. And I'm also a member of Okoa Uchumi, so issues to do with public debt. So one thing I've seen in the budget that is quite concerning is issues to do with agriculture. For the third year in a row, the allocation is decreasing. For this budget estimates that have been presented to the public, it's going to go down by 5%. So it is threatening our ability as Kenyans to feed ourselves in dignity. It is also affecting our small-scale farmers and farmers at large. It is a symbol that the government is not keen on investing in the agricultural sector. We keep on saying agriculture is the backbone of our economy, right? But this does not reflect in the budget. And you know that the Constitution of Kenya, Article 43, has the Bill of Rights, and right to quality and affordable food is one of the rights. It's a fundamental right for Kenyans. So that's the one thing that I'm very concerned about. One good thing that I've seen, there's a new budget line for disability inclusion. Yeah, that has not been there before. So it seems that the government wants to keep its promise when it comes to supporting the special interest groups, that is the persons with disability. But still, on the other hand, the cash transfer allocation has still remained the same, meaning persons with disability will still get the same stipend, which has been noted that is not enough considering the economic situation currently. So I was expecting to see at least some provision for an increase in the amount of the cash transferred sent to the people who are heavily reliant on government support. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to start by introducing myself. I'm Michael Peter Odwor, the founder and director of KPAT. KPAT is a community-based organization called Kawangware Youth's Paralegal Trust. I'm very, very delighted to be here and part of this conversation because it is at the center of our economy and our growth and development is centered towards this kind of a conversation. Back to the question that the Madam Moderator has just asked. What is that I feel it's important? And where are my dismays? Let me start by looking from the positive side. Because the government always think we as civil society members, our work is just to criticize. Not just to critique, but to criticize the government. for the first time, I want to say we are looking at it from both lenses. And I would say the part that I feel good, of course, they have touched the health. And you know, health in this space within the budget that we are discussing, it at the national level. And if you look at that document, I have seen, you know, what we call the primary health care providers, the ones they call the CHPs. I have seen them being factored in the is it the she or sha thing? This she-sha that people are getting confused with every day. At least I can see that amount being put there by the government paying for them. It's a plus, it wasn't there before. But the general amount allocated to the health sector, it's so much worrying. If you heard what my brother from Dagoretti is so much concerned about, because you look at the services that are provided at the level 4, so for it to be a level 4, there are those that are constitutionally provided for. If the hospital does not meet those thresholds, then level 4 is just but a paper, not in reality. So those are some of the areas we would want to see being worked on. But generally, I'm happy about the CHP considerations because of the insurance paid under the SHA. It's a very good plus. However, on the negative side, I'm still also with my sister here, because we always talk about Kenya agriculture being the backbone. I don't know whether it is 61 million or 61 billion, but the wordings should be million there. Looking at it from the national perspective, it is not going down well with us. And that is now where you will start and hearing the issues of fertilizers, some stones that looks like fertilizers being given to farmers. You look at issues to do with you know, the transport sector within the waivers that they always do within the tea, the sugar factories. How are they resonating with the budget that has been allocated to them? So those are some of the conversations that touches the real mwananchi to the core. That when you talk of Kenya being a working nation, we are moving from a working nation to a walking. And actually someone was telling me today in the morning that it is even healthier to be a walking nation than a working nation. So we need to rethink ourselves, because this is where the real issues are. Thank you for that. At this point, I leave it at that point.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Valentine Mweni. I work with Haki Jamii. We are the Economic and Social Rights Center. Coming back to the question that Angela asked, I think for me, I don't like looking at the budget process just at the preparation stage. I like looking at it full circle. So I think for me, one concern is that beyond devolving functions, we're still seeing the trend of leaving most of the funds at the national government, but expecting service delivery at the counties. But I think I will delve into specific sectors as we look now into specifics, but it's still a concern. How will it translate to service delivery if the functions don't come with the money? And then what gives me hope, I'm looking at it from the citizen perspective, not at the books. I think we are seeing more and more citizens being concerned with the process, and I think it will influence where the money goes, not how, you know, Angela said we need to look where it is supposed to go. We also need to look, did it actually go there? Beyond the numbers exciting us in the books, we know we are implementing one budget when making another one, so let's not look at, the numbers will be put there to impress us and we'll be happy. We'll say, waliongeza, tulisema na wakaongeza, but at the end of the year, do we go back to see if the money actually went there? So I'm actually happy with more and more citizens being engaged in the entire process. Thank you.
Good morning. Well, several things stick out for me. My name is James Mulamba, President Bunge la Mwananchi. a Gen Z, and an active citizen. I think we have a problem with how we budget. I know this sounds like rhetoric by now, but I do not understand how State House gets a 16 billion allocation and an entire ministry for youth, sports, and creative economy gets 16 billion shillings. It is not lost to us that young people are sponsoring themselves to represent this country abroad. Kevin Kiarie is the latest example of daring Kenyans who are willing to sponsor themselves to represent this country. Kevin Kiarie won the African Championship skating, the African Skating Championship, I think in Benin and in Egypt, after sponsoring himself, because the ministry was unwilling to sponsor him. This is not an isolated case. If your memory serves you right, I think there was another case of another athlete who sponsored himself to represent this country. Well, the ministry will go on to, and they will retreat to the popular rhetoric here. This athlete, this sports personality is not registered with the ministry, and they did not notify us of the itinerary. But point is, the ministry really supports sports and talent in Kenya. And how would they support sports and talent if they get the same allocation State House is getting? I would expect that the Ministry of Youth and Sports should at least get somewhere between 50 to 100 or 200 billion shillings to support the youth, to support sports and the creative economy. I do not understand how the judiciary is also getting a 30 billion allocation while Parliament is getting a 50 billion allocation. I think Parliament has around 400 MPs, I think, if I'm not wrong. Judiciary has so many judges, so many magistrates, so many clerks, and so many civil servants who serve under the judiciary. Why is it getting a 30 billion allocation? We are going to have the perennial problem of the backlog of cases, and we are not going to expand into new courts. Some cases za shamba zitakaa for 50 years hapo kotini. So we need to review how we budget for the judiciary and amongst other aspects kwa hii budget. Asanteni.
So there's nothing that gives you hope in that budget.
This is a debt-dependent budget. That means we will borrow perennially, and we are always starting from a negative. We are borrowing 1 trillion shillings for and to repay debt, not for development spending. We've shifted our priorities and substituted them from development spending to borrowing to service debts. Arguably, Ruto would say he got this country on its knees, just like Gachagua said at one point that the country had empty coffers. But then this is what he was fighting to get. He campaigned so violently and aggressively to get to this point. So at least we expect he had a plan on how to dig us out of this pit. Na kama hii kazi imekuwa ngumu sana, tuko na 14 months. Kama inaona imekuwa ngumu, anaweza tuachia pia.
Wow. So I don't know, from where you sit, for those of us who have read the budget, is there anything that has given you hope? Kama sisi wote ni mulambas. I think I don't like the look on your faces, but I don't blame you. It is what it is. So maybe Eve, back to you, because we are seeing debt pressure, we are seeing economic shocks, but we also see citizens have expectations. So according to how our government has budgeted, do you think it's based on the reality or it's just a political ambition? And maybe you can also just paint a picture. In the budget, we have recurrent and we have capital, which is development budget. How does that look like, maybe for the people who have not had an opportunity?
Thank you so much, Angela. First, I'd like to say that the budget is supposed to be a tool to enhance our lives. So despite the sensational numbers, we should be able to establish or evaluate and find out whether these allocations are translating to the access of quality services. What do I mean by that? When you go to your local health facility or your level 3s, 4s, and 5s, you are supposed to be able to access quality services. Are you able to do so, right? We've also seen the issues with the CBC or whatever it's called right now. There are issues with the educational system, which should be a great concern for all of us. So basically, the budget should translate to access to quality services. So I just want to paint a picture of what these budget estimates have proposed for the incoming financial year of 2026-2027. So at least we can get the gravity of the kind of allocations that have been provided for the expenditure side of things, and also the consolidated fund, which basically is a compilation of pensions, the money that goes to paying pensions, and also the money that goes to public debt. And then on the other hand, on the expenditure side, there is the recurrent and development budget. Recurrent budget being the allocation towards wages, salaries, and other government expenses. And then on the development side, that is the money that goes into infrastructure, the construction of our hospitals, our schools, roads, and so on. So the budget proposal is proposing to have an expenditure budget of 4.82 trillion. How many zeros are in a trillion? 9. How long do you think it would take you to sit down and count 4.82 trillion? Can you do it by yourself, or do you need a whole county, a whole team of people to help you count? What I'm trying to express is that is a lot of money. And over the years, the budget has been increasing with the fact that we have never ever experienced a surplus as a country. That means comparing what we expend and what we raise in revenues, we have never had a plus. We always have a deficit. So for this year, the deficit is 1.1 trillion. That is the money that we don't have. Therefore, when you don't have the money, what do? We have to borrow, right? And part of that borrowing, 890 billion, the government plans to borrow domestically. That should be a great concern for us, because what the government does, they float bonds and T-bills within the Kenyan context, and they make it very attractive in terms of the kind of interest you can earn from the T-bills and the bonds. How many have taken T-bills and bonds here? Who has invested in those? Eka tu mkono juu usiogope. Yeah, so out of that 1.1 trillion that we don't have, 890 is going to be raised domestically, and that is a great concern. Why? The banks are more keen on giving government loans as opposed to you and I. You know why? Because there's reduced risk when it comes to the government paying the banks back. And the interest rate is also very lucrative and high for them. So the bank, when you go as John, Peter, Paul to the bank, they may shy away from giving you a loan because they prefer giving the government the loans instead of you. So what happens to you who's a small business holder? You're not able to access credit. You result in doing what? Going to loan sharks or the mobile, borrowing applications, which have exorbitant interest rates. You see, so what happens to most small business holders or entrepreneurs? You end up scaling down or closing your business altogether. This also affects the private sector. They also would not be able to access loans from the banks. As I said before, the banks are more keen on giving the government institutions the loans instead. So when we break it down, we want to see how much is going to recurrent, and we want to see how much is going to development, right? We've had sensational stories online about how our MPs, our governors are spending exorbitantly. The expensive trips they're taking, the expensive teas and other expensive things that we have the Auditor General has uncovered. So for this budget proposals, for the recurrent side, 3.54 trillion is going to that side. And out of that 3.5 trillion, there is the consolidated fund that I spoke about, which has pensions. Something really stood out for me when it comes to these pensions. Since independence, when did we get independence? Since independence, we have been paying the UK government pensions. That means there are several people who were born in the 1930s who worked in the Kenyan government before independence who are still getting pensions. Do you think that is justified? Well, there was a treaty that was there in the 1900s, early 1900s, where the Kenyan government and the UK government agreed when they were leaving the country, the Kenyan government is still going to support those people, the civil servants who worked here, our colonizers. We've been paying them pensions for 6 decades. For this current, the provisions for the budget estimate, it's at 39 million. I feel like 39 million can go towards something else. Yeah, if at all that UK government has, they respect our democracy, I think this is something we can do away with. They owe us reparations, right? So this money should be diverted into other things. That is one thing that really stood out for me on the pension side of things in the consolidated fund, on the recurrent side of the budget. Then allocating 749 billion towards development. Seriously, are we being serious? Do you think that's enough to ensure that we have consistent development in Kenya? All right, when you have a look at all of that, and also compare to the economic challenges that Kenyans are facing right now, the government is more inclined, the budget rather, is more inclined politically as opposed to considering the economic situation of Kenyans at the moment. Considering the fact that we are getting into an election year, you are seeing how projects are being rushed, right? They want to complete the projects and then they'll be able to use that to campaign and say, naona nimefanya hivi, nilitenga, nikafanya hivi na hivi na hivi. But at the expense of the well-being, social well-being of Kenyans, right? So it is a great concern. We need to move from that political inclination to considering the regular mwananchi, you know, and budgeting towards availing these economic and social rights-based programs and projects so that at least we can be able to access quality services. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. And I don't know, do we have anyone in this room who receives pension? Okay, do we have someone in the room whose parents receive pension? Oh, hey, ningeshanga, how old we are. Yeah, but how is the feeling? How are our parents saying about the pension? Are they happy? Do they receive it in good time? Yeah, so I think when we are looking at the budgets, the next time you're talking to your mom, talking to your dad and they're complaining, at least now you know where to look and see where the issues are. So I like that one of our expectations today, someone mentioned about health. And so because we are very young in this room, most of us, I want us to look at health and education because I feel these are very basic services. And so I'll go to you, Valentine. When I was looking at the budget, interestingly, the allocations have been increasing year in, year out. And education apparently has received quite a good allocation in this budget. So should we celebrate? Is it something we should be happy about? And even as you respond to that, why is it that even with the increase in the budgets, I think those are the two sectors that Kenyans are really feeling the pain. So what is happening? What is that allocation? How does it look like, and why is it that the citizen is not feeling it?
Thank you, Angela. And I think you've actually put it correctly. The allocations are increasing. Do we know what percentage of the budget is going to education? Around? Yeah? 5%? Lower, higher? 10%? Higher? 20%? Higher? 30%? No, lower. Good. You people have read the budget. It's approximately around 28 point something percent, 28.5%, right? But I want us to look at it in two ways. One, we can look at it as a percentage of the total allocation, or just compare it, the figure itself against the needs. So, because as a percentage of the budget, it could impress us, but what is this budget supposed to cater for? There's basic education, there's TVETs, there's higher educations. Comrades, help inakuja. Yeah? Are we getting our scholarships? Yeah? These are not comrades. These are post-comrades. So I think for education, yes, it has been a trend of getting a higher proportion of the budget, but looking at it against what it's supposed to actually cater for. How many students are there? We are looking at the needs outpacing the allocations. So it's a matter of, yes, the allocation increased, but what was the enrollment looking like for that year and the like? But also looking at how the structure of education is. We know some part of the education is under counties, right? For the ECD and the like. So we also need to follow this allocation. What proportion of the budget are the counties getting for them to cater for health and education? Looking at health, for the national budget, what percentage is going to health? 10%? Low. Kuna one student hapa, a student. There's one A student. 2%? Higher. 3%? I'm narrowing the choices. Higher, 7%? Almost. Okay, let's say approximately around 5%, right? But we have the Abuja Declaration, where we committed to, as a country, to be allocating 15% of the budget to health. We are aware of that, right? So consistently we have been falling short of this, yet expecting the outcomes to translate from a shortfall. And health is very highly substantially devolved. So as I said earlier, I had an issue with part of this big allocation still remaining at the national government. Have we seen some level 5s, recent level 5s upgrades and the likes? Are we seeing hospitals moving their levels? I think that is part of the motive behind how we justify this allocation. So I think looking just at the numbers, they could be increasing for education, but when we compare them against the needs, we are way below what we require. Because even for capitation, just looking at capitation, the figures which we allocate per student versus what it requires to actually educate a student. Then we hear cases of principals being summoned for increasing, fuel imepanda. Shule zinatumia fuel. Basi, sindo? Even for cooking and what, just to run a school, the inflation will affect the cost of running schools, right? So there's no way we are expecting them to cushion at the same capitation, which we have been giving these people for 5 years. Ukipewa 3,000 5 years ago versus 3,000 right now, we appreciate what it can cater for is different, right? So I think it's more of us not cushioning the changes in inflation. And I think, will we feel the effect even in terms of allocation? Not in the immediate. One, I think, I'm not sure if I should go into the accountability bit right now. Because as much as even education getting the 28.5, when we get the supplementary, this might change. And I'm saying when we get, not if we get. because we know. See, we know there'll be a supplementary. Why is it? And do we, as citizens, are we involved in the supplementary? You know, we need to learn the government we are working with. So it's more for the main budget, we will put the figures you want, you will be impressed. Then we will change them 3 months down the line. And even after changing them, we won't use it for what it was intended for. Are we looking at the Auditor General's reports? Ghost schools getting, out of this 28.5, a very big proportion is still going to ghost schools. Ghost hospitals are receiving SHA and SHIF disbursements, and then we're seeing the faith-based hospitals. Tumeonanga yo standoff, where they're saying now we can't treat people using the SHIF. Why? Because the counties and the government is not disbursing the money to us. But there are public ghost hospitals that are still, out of this 5%, ghost hospitals are still getting. So I think the figures shouldn't really excite us. They should concern us more than excite us. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know how that feels. So when you asked about comrades, the room was quiet. So are we parents? Are we paying school fees for our brothers, our sisters, our children? Bas, simesikia. Budget iko, lakini tungoje matokeo. So I want to go to you, Michael. And I know in this room we have people who are in business. I know we have the real hustlers in this room. We have young people who are trying to get into entrepreneurship, into self-employment. And our government has been very keen and very clear about supporting the young people. It's a government of young people, ni government ya Gen Z. Sijui kama nyinyi mnaifeel. Lakini labda kwa budget iko, wacha Michael atuambie. Michael, budget inaangalia aje ma youths, ma Gen Z na watu wa biashara especially?
Okay, thank you. I think first allow me to perhaps digest on what you had previously asked, whether this budget is real, politically instigated. And my digestion is that, you know, the Constitution is the backbone of all these arrangements. And that Constitution gives this government the latitude on how the recurring expenditure and capital expenditure should go. That is 30-70%. So at any given time, when you get the 70% going to the recurrent, then that means that the 3.2 trillion that Madam is talking about is definitely geared towards the recurrent, which leaves Kenyans to work with the 30%, and of which that 30%, they tell you that 800 billion will come from the domestic sourcing, on source. So that now, the effect of that is now what you are now asking. How is the business with the youth and informal sector? The financial year comes with a lot of changes. If you look at the finance bill, especially the 2026-2027, it is amending almost 5 to 6 acts. We have the Income Tax Act amendment. We have the what we call the stamp duty. We have the excise duty. We have a quite number of them, including the VAT. Now, When these amendments takes place, those amendments are either decreased or increased. What surprises me most is that the government is so keen about empowering the youth and very clear on how they want the youth to be elevated from what they call, and I always refrain from using the word, but allow me for the purposes of this conversation, the bottom-up approach. Allow me to use that for the purpose of this conversation. It is their own making. They want to elevate the young boys and girls that are here from a certain level to another level. And they create avenues. And through the finance bill, those avenues are created, surely. But you realize, for instance, they have just talked about the importation of the mobile phones. I don't know how many of us have interacted with that. Talking about the cellular telephones. And in the previous arrangements, the budget, the taxes were imposed on the VAT when you import the mobile phones, right? So meaning that you are to extend it to the customers, and that is the law. Now, they are telling you that no, we are not having it at the VAT, so we can have the customers be at liberty. But now they are shifting it from the VAT and they're taking it to the excise duty. I don't know if you get the logic. Now, at the excise duty, they say it is at 25%. And remember, at the VAT, it was at 5%. What is the implication? Just as Madam Angela said, it is either showing that if you cannot compete in the business, shut it down. Because how will you be able, because that requirement that it is done at the point, actually, the excess duty is given to the wholesalers, the manufacturers, and the distributors. It is not coming directly to the consumers. But what will happen to a young man that has just opened a business in town? How will he be able to pay the rent? How will he be able to even, if at all he has some few staffs that assist him in that business, will he be able to operate? So that is how this budget is serious when it comes to issues of creating job opportunities. And you understand that in as much as we clap our hands when we hear these figures, and I want to agree with the precurrent speakers, when they talk about, it is not just about the figures. It is about what can that figure do. Agricultural sector is both at the national and the county level, if you read the Schedule 4 of the Constitution. The amount of money that is left at the national level, it is good enough in terms of figures. But are the rates of the farmers that are doing business in the milk sector resonating with the figures that we see? Those are the kind of questions that we are supposed to be asking ourselves. When they talk about 1 liter of milk being sold at 65 from 45, and they will always clap. They run on top of vehicles, telling you how they have revamped the tea sector. They have paid the debts that were being owed by some sugar companies around. But these sugar companies are not running. They are not running in essence. Where is the money allocated towards elevating of the agricultural sector heading to? And when you look at the informal business, they are imposing, I don't know if some of us have seen it, what we call the people who are in the Juakali sector, the OEs, the metal importation of the metal works. A lot of levies are being put in that particular sector, telling you that the production within our own system is not going to be promoted. Instead, they are still asking us to import a lot of already manufactured goods in this particular country. And yet we say we are setting a stage for the, what you call, going to Singapore via Canaan. I don't know if it is through Canaan or via Canaan. So you can imagine that is the situation of this budget. That is the situation of this budget. How is it resonating with the common mwananchi? I was talking to someone yesterday and I told him that we anticipate the IPRA conversation. And before the time went, we already had their conversation. What is it? It is 16 and 46, huh? Is it the case? But the other time we were told we had done some subsidy by way through the VAT from 16% to 8%. Is that the case now? But again, you come 1 month later, you do the calculations, and that calculation tells you that these people have already settled. They have understood the economy is bad. We can now increase from that amount that we told them we reduced. Let us now increase it again to 16% that we had already told them we reduced. So you can see the game plan that is already taking shape. And these are all geared towards the political space that is coming. I'm a bit worried. I'm a bit worried, but my brother there told me that, Mike, relax, don't be worried. Because, you know, I had invested a lot of energy in the GNZs, actually, and I even told him, I had invested a lot of energy in the GNZs. And I said, yes, this time we are getting it well. We are getting it right. But from my analysis, for the 5 by-elections that has taken place, this is not political, but just arithmetical, the analyzing the current situation. The 5 by-elections, the government that we say is not doing right is still carrying the day, winning all the seats. Is it not a challenge to those people who feel otherwise? It's a challenge. So what would be the best practical solution on this? Because we need to have this kind of a conversation so that we understand where this shoe is pitching at most. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And nani wewe tu unapigiwa makofi. Okay. Ni vizuri sana. Ninaona mahali tunaelekea. But it's good to paint that picture. And remember, as we said, yeah, we have really, we are taxpayers, and it's fine. It's good to, you know, we will feel the pain of paying our taxes. But I want us to remember that the budget process has different cycles. And so my challenge today is, let's not just be engaging on 1 and 2, and then we relax and wait for it to start again. Because how many of us read, for instance, the Auditor General reports? How many of us follow the money? And I think the day we start going through, following through the entire budget cycle from where it is, you know, formed until we audit. And we need to start, and that's why I said today we want to see where is our money going. Because until we understand that, we will not be motivated to engage. But I want to go to Bunge la Mwananchi, because I know your engagement is cuts across older people, young people, women and all that. And just to see, I think Mike has told us what's going on with the businesses. But so as we are having this budget conversation and finance bill conversation, how is Mwananchi taking it? How are they looking at it? Sometimes we are very excited about, it's elections, it's campaign time. Yeah, so how are they feeling about this budget, this finance bill, and how are they engaging?
I will start by helping Mike on the question about youth enterprises. I believe that was the question. So the budget for the youth enterprises is somewhere between 1 to 4 billion shillings for 15 to 25 million youths. I am taking into consideration the demographic somewhere between 18 to 35 years. This makes about 40% of the population. Probably if tunaanza 35 years kurudi hadi 0 years would make 70% of the population. So going by the 40% demographic, and the young people in Kenya, we are receiving 4 billion shillings. Kuna mtu akona calculator hapo, anaweza piga hesabu haraka haraka. 4 billion shillings divided by 15 million youths ni pesa ngapi? Kuna mtu ameipata?
Ukipata answer uinua mkono. Tuone my index 1. Sorry?
Now divide that by 22 million young people. 4 billion shillings divided by 22 million young people. How much? 181. It counts for a moderate lunch, doesn't it? So if today the government decided to, let's assume we all want to become entrepreneurs, and they decided to give us 181 shillings per person. Hata mpuli hiyo familia yenu yote, tunaweza weka kitu kweli? So let us assume we bank on the youth empowerment program, which is a loan, by the way, that Ruto borrowed from World Bank, 200 billion shillings. Was it 200 billion or 200 million? 200 billion, I think. Which is a loan we need to repay. Well, tulikuwa tunapewa pesa ngapi? 22,000 shillings as a first batch, alafu another 22 billion shillings, then 22,000 shillings, 6,000 shillings goes to savings. 22,000 shillings, ni pesa watu wamepata help karibu kila semester. Imeweka biashara gani? Si hiyo pesa tumenunua nayo sound system. I think the government has not realized that to fund the young people, you need to fund groups, not individuals. That does not take away the fact that this money is too meager for any business. But if they were to fund enterprises, the government needs to probably rethink how it funds the young people. It would make more sense to fund a youth group than to fund an individual person. The Hustler Fund was supposed to exonerate us from the perennial problems zenye tuko nazo ya trying to source for capital, na banki inakuambia wewe hauna title deed, hauna logbook, enda utafute alafu rudi kijana. Hustler Fund imetupea pesa individually. Mwenye akona limit kubwa hapa imefika 10,000 ainue mkono. Mwenye amefikisha 5,000 ainue mkono, tumuone tajiri. Hata 2,000 hakuna? Moja, tutaonana after hapa. So you see, nikikupea 2,000 shillings as your upper limit ya help, labda uanze kuuza sweet, hata hiyo biashara ya njugu huwezi anzisha. I tried to apply for an Hustler Fund, as a youth group. Na in all attempts, they never registered my youth group. Nime attempt for almost 6 months, nikachoka. I am part of several youth groups. Unfortunately, wanasiasa wanataka kutupea pesa ya kuweka kaosh. Sio kitu ingine. Wanadada mpewe ya dressing, mpewe blow dry, uende ukajisort uko mbele. Kama wakuhurumia wakupee posho meal, ujue penye utaweka. So it has been unrealistic for me. Kama siwezi pewa, kama kwanza hawezi register a Hustler Fund youth group, hiyo registration kwanza ni unsuccessful. That means siwezi apply for hiyo pesa kama group ya vijana ambayo inataka kutumia Hustler Fund. Sasa hiyo pesa itakuja aje? Because tukipull 300 yetu 200 yetu hakuna kitu tutaanzisha. So the government needs to reconfigure how it funds the young people, and I will propose they fund youth groups instead. Na wakuwe serious na hii kitu. The same way wako serious na kutupea 500 na limit ya 2000 kwa Hustler Fund on the upper limit. Watupee pesa kwa hizo youth groups. It would make more sense that way. Because ukienda ku approach MCA wa kwenu ama women rep, mwambia kufinance na biashara, hata kama umeleta biashara mzuri aje, na kuambia sisi kama ni kukusaidia labda tukupee water tanks. Ukipewa water tanks ni kao shtu utafikiria. Ukienda na biashara mzuri anaanza kupoke holes kwa hiyo idea yako. So that is a problem we have. Yeye anataka kitu yenye inawekwa mahali ionekane, na kwa hiyo tanki ya maji aenda andike donated by honorable shasha. Huyo mwingine amepea watu nguruwe. I think we have underutilized the NYS. I think we need to probably change the scope and the mandate of the NYS. Kuna mzee aliniambia during that time, I don't know if this is true, kila mtu alikuwa anaingia NYS baada ya kumaliza form 4. Walipewa training, wakapewa skills, paid for by the government, and they were paid a stipend for the meaningful work they did for this country. Watu wa NYS wanatumwa kufanya nini Kenya? Sijui kusafisha mitaro, sijui kuenda, sijui kuslash nyasi wapi. These guys could be put into good use. In the affordable housing program, yenye Ruto anashinda kisifu, si aweke hawa vijana na walipe. It is not lost to us that in this internship and attachment opportunities, young people are not even paid a stipend. Mtu anataka uende kwake kazi for 30 days. Vile utafika kwa hiyo kazi hataki kujua, but unafaa uende kwa hiyo kazi for 30 days. Na hiyo kazi hakuna lunch. Labda tu chai ile yenye ni ya strungi. Bwana tutasurvive aje? Na anataka upige tai na ukuje umangara vizuri. Hiyo pesa ya kiwi tunatoa wapi? Nikimalizia. The general citizen is pensive, cautious, distrustful of budgeting, and fatigued. After the 2024 finance bill protests, citizens now scrutinize the budget making process, budgets, and the finance bill closely. They are fishing for taxes, new levies, borrowing, and probably the pronouncement on the cost of living. People are now pushing for accountability, visible value for taxes, and lower pressure on households. Not just new taxes or revenue intervention measures. See, in countries like Singapore and China, the countries we want to go to, I don't know if anyone here still wants to go to Singapore. Last I checked, we were going to Canada. I do not understand the obsession to go to other people's countries. They don't want to come here. So why do we want to go to their places? If it is metaphorical, we're just trying to be symbolic, and we are trying to at least ape and copy those who've done better than us, then we should do exactly what they did. 1, we leak so much revenue in this country. 60% of e-budget inaenda kuibiwa. Na hiyo ni kitu tunajua, hakuna swali hapo. And we are not willing to fix this. Wamatangi akisema sasa hataki stories za Ruto, kimbiza EACC hapo. Gachagua akisema ametoka kwa serikali, tuma EACC hapo. I'm not trying to defend anyone, but we've weaponized our state institutions. IPO ikisema, ikiambiwa hii kesi kanyagia, tunakanyagia. Mkikosa ukanyagia, tutaachilia budget yenu. So we need to change the culture of politics in this country. And as I finish, as I was saying, in Singapore and China, citizens are paying up to 40% of their salaries to taxes. And they are paying anywhere close to, I think, 30 to 40% of their tax to pension. Reasonably, because the government wants to raise a pool of money to invest in their country. Hii Kenya mkiambiwa mlipe 30% of your salary to pension, mtakubali? Mimi kwanza sina mshahara ya kulipa hiyo, lakini hata ningekuwa nao siwezi kubali. Huko wameset a good culture that we will not steal your money. We will invest your money prudently and will be accountable to the last coin. And we will actually shoot and hang anyone who tries to steal from you. If that happened in Kenya, I don't think would be this distrustful of our budgets. Hata mtaka 70% ya mshahara, basi chukueni. Lakini tukienda kwa hospitali, nisilipe madawa. Watoto wangu wakitaka kusoma shule, wasome free. Alafu hata hizi bus, tuletewe za serikali bwana. Zilikuwa wakati ya Moi. Tulipe hata 20 bob ama 10 bob, ile tu ya kuchange oil. We are willing to pay more with a better government. Shida iko hapo. Si mnanielewa? Haya basi.
Oh, sikuwa najua mnapenda kulipa tax hivyo. Na kwa nini huwa mna complain? Oh, you can't see what taxes are working. Yeah, and that's why, like we said, we really need to see hii pesa yetu inaenda wapi. And I know we have tuko na government ya national government and we have devolution. How are you guys feeling about devolution? Okay, maybe before that, Eve, I know you have some interest also in devolution. And we saw in the budget, they have been allocated some money. How much is that? How does it look like? And why is it that they still are feeling that devolution is just not working as it should?
Thank you, Angela, for that. As we know, devolution, the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya was done in 2010, but it started getting actualized in 2013 because with any new thing, it takes some time. So 2013 is when counties started operating. There had to be a transitional authority that facilitated that move from the central government to the system of devolved government. So the whole idea of devolution was to ensure that we are bringing services closer to the areas that were more marginalized. We all remember how the ASAL counties were before devolution happened. It was like a foreign land, right? It was not as developed as the cities in Kenya. So devolution has, the idea was to bring services closer to the marginalized communities. However, there's what is currently happening is there's a sense of over-reliance because counties were supposed to generate their own revenues, right? But what we are seeing is counties are relying heavily on the national government to send them something called what? Equitable share. And this equitable share is a significant amount for most counties. It is more than what they're able to collect on their own. So what is frustrating counties, and we've seen a lot of times governors protesting and saying they're going to down their tools. So we see that a lot. Your whole governor is saying atafanya kitu because hakuna pesa kwa county, haijafika kutoka national government. Just have this picture. We have a whole financial year, right? It has 4 quarters. Then the national government is sending money, let's say to Nairobi County, for instance, on the 3rd quarter of the financial year. Nitatekeleza majukumu lini? When do you expect me to implement my budget? If you're sending me the allocation in quarter 3, you see it becomes difficult and frustrating for counties. And then you also have delayed payments to the staff of the counties. If you interact with most county officials or these technocrats, they'll tell you they are very demotivated to do anything there. You know? their salaries are delayed by over 3 months. You're expected to still go to work, still do the budget, do the planning, and still remain motivated. It can be a bit difficult. So most people are very frustrated within those counties. There's a particular instance, very good example that I can give for Nairobi County, because I work a lot with Nairobi County in terms of helping them plan and budget better. So according to PFM, the county is supposed to do a gazette notice for any public participation forum, right? How many of us read the newspapers? Nani ananunuanga gazeti? I see one right there at the back. But the general feeling is we are not reading newspapers as much as our parents used to. That is a fact. But government is still putting out notices for public participation via newspapers. So I always check, like when we do this survey with an organization called Budgeti Hub. How many of you know that organization? Yes, Budgeti Hub. So there's a survey we do called the County Budget Transparency Survey, which is actually being launched on the first week of June. So what it does is we check how counties are open and transparent. You'll see, even in the news, in the first week of June, you'll see this county was number 1, this county was number last in terms of availability, comprehensiveness, and timeliness of budget documents. So what this survey has done, it's really encouraged counties to publish and publicize their budget documents. So back to my story. So that's one of the requirements that we do when we're doing the evaluation. Did the county put out public participation notice in the paper? So I realized Nairobi County had not done that for a certain document. I looked everywhere. So I reached out to someone in one of the departments. And they were like, let me just tell you the truth about what is happening. They were not able to publish it in one of the media stations or media newspapers because they owed them money for a couple of months, like 6 months. So they said, until you pay us, we are not going to publish this in our newspaper. You owe us too much money. So you see how also the delayed disbursement is also causing frustrations in the county in terms of trying to adhere to the calendar timelines. You see, so hiyo newspaper ilikataa kupost or publish the notice because hawajalipwa na county. There's another situation for another county. These budget documents are supposed to be retrieved from their official websites. That's the executive or the county website of any county. Those are the credible documents, by the way. If you look elsewhere, I see Kipra also publishing, but what the legal framework stipulates is it's the executive assembly website and also the new website by Treasury called what? Budget Yetu. So this particular county had not put any budget document. We realized this from the survey. So we went to the county to interact with the economic and planning department. And they told us what had happened to their website was they had not been able to pay the webmaster, the person who was hosting for them their website. So the person decided wakafunga nini website. So they shut it down because of the pending bills. They had not been paid for some time. So you can see how devolution on that late disbursement of funds from the national government can frustrate counties. So in short, I think we can do better. The counties can be empowered to do better. In this budget estimates proposal, it's been proposed for the counties to receive 420 billion. This has been going up for a couple of years. It started at about 375, now we are at 420. Of course, economical changes are happening, so the counties are requiring more money to invest in them, right? So 480 billion is not divided equally across the 47 counties. There's this organization called the Commission of Revenue Allocation. How many have heard of it? CRA. CRA is obligated to come up with a formula which has very many different aspects of it, be it agriculture, the capability of a county to raise its own resources, the quality of the roads and stuff like that goes into the creation of that formula. So that formula is what is used to divide that 420 billion across all the 47 counties. all counties are not the same, right? Some counties have developed faster and better than others. So that formula also considers that. You'll realize a county like Nairobi with the highest population in this country and also the highest pending bills will get a significant amount of money compared to another county, right? So we also need to appreciate that that formula considers many aspects of how counties are going to utilize their budgets and the makeup, the demographic makeups and other factors. So also to uphold the equity perspective. We're not all the same. How many have seen that diagram for the people standing, trying to look over the wall? I wish I could demonstrate to you. You've seen that picture? It demonstrates equity, right? Some people have to be elevated more to reach people who are already considered elevated. And that is the role of the equalization fund. So the evolution also has brought the need for an equalization fund, right? So certain counties have qualified equalization fund for many years, but there's still no development. This is what causes this. This is caused by the fact that many counties are misusing their resources without consequences. Somebody talked about EACC. Who knows the function of EACC? Just shout. To investigate, right? So from EACC, after investigation, it's supposed to go to which government entity? Someone bold, shout it out. I can't hear you. Yeah. Oh, otherwise called the ODPP. So you see all those government entities, they are considered independent, they have their own rules. Then, you know, one's power is to investigate, and then I'll hand over that information to the ODPP, who then prosecutes. But do we feel like that system has been fruitful? Have you ever seen, apart from one governor, former governor Waitito, who's been imprisoned, have you ever seen any other governor suffering the same fate? Right? So you see, there are people who are even, they've been imprisoned for lesser crimes. Mtu aliiba kuku pale nje, anajipata ndani for 2 years. But someone who is committing economic crimes, which is affecting people's lives, goes scot-free. What happens in terms of the next people who are elected, the people who come into government? What happens? They've been seeing this trend. Don't think they don't know. They will follow suit. For sure, they will follow suit. Because at the end of the day, there are no consequences. I'm here to build generational wealth. Hata kama niko hapa for 1 term, right? I gain generational wealth. Alafu, I am on my way and nothing is going to happen to me. So I feel like also to ensure that our counties are working. Because at the end of the day, these are people we've entrusted as custodians of our public resources. But they are really violating us. You know, there's a certain county of somewhere in the Esals. This person came from, the governor, current governor, came from being an MCA in Kayole into a whole governor. Kuna ukabila hapo, but we need to also be very careful about the people we are putting in public offices. Isikwe tu mambo ya ukabila, ama ni mtu wangu, ati you think you're going to benefit from them being in office. No, we should arrest that trend right now, because we are seeing how people are suffering because of those choices they are making, right? I'll stop there. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Eve. And I like the way you've painted the entire picture of, you know, why whatever is happening. But there's a conversation we can't run away from. So we have a deficit of 1.1 trillion. So, and we are here, we are hoping for things to get better. So Valentine, tuambie tu kweli, budget yetu umeona ni shilingi ngapi? Revenue yetu, I'm sure you know how much we are planning to. That's why we have a deficit of 1.1 trillion. So when you look at the consolidated fund services, honestly speaking, should we be hopeful? Should we look forward to, even as we look at our budgets, how visible is it that we are going to achieve what we are budgeting for with such kind of a deficit?
Well, I think Nikumoto. My colleague is saying Nikumoto, but hey, Nikumoto. I think we need to look at the structural issues that we have within the public finance system. Easy numbers zisitufurahishe hata kidogo, because let me just look at, say, the way I was looking at education. Do we know, does education ministry fully absorb its budget? Yeah? Tunarudisha pesa. It is less and it still goes back. Sindo? State House, does it absorb its budget? In which quarter? Within the second quarter, tushamaliza full budget, right? So, I think kuna structural issues which may be systemic, deliberate. Why are there procurement issues and procurement delays in specific sectors and they're not affecting other sectors? Yet these sectors that are being affected are the ones that are supposed to improve our daily lives, right? Health. If health, really we are returning money because of the friend from Dagoretti, he said there's a hospital, Sindo, but it's not equipped. And if we look at the budget, you'll see kulikuwa na pesa, ikakuja the last quarter, ikarudi. Right? And I know Angela said we need to not just look at the preparation bit of it, because this one we will be involved. They will involve us. Watakuja. But beyond that, I think kuna issues more on procurement, improving just efficiency as a government. Other than allocating, how is it supposed to translate kwa actual service delivery? Kuna a lot of leakages, financial leakages. My friend here amesema he knows what percentage of money will be stolen, even before. Before hata iapproviwe. Tuone minister akishika ile kabag. We already know how much of it will be misappropriated, right? So I think kuna too a lot of structural issues that need to be addressed. Corruption, as Eva said, if the full cycle is not being followed, if people are not being held accountable for misappropriation, we will continue increasing allocations that translate to people having more disposable money to waste. Sindo, say, there's an example I like using of a father who has children. Kuna mmoja very responsible. Akipewa pesa, ako kwa bonds, ana-invest everywhere. And there's another one wa kupiga sherehe. Be as a parent, hata nikiongezea huyu wa sherehe pesa, it doesn't mean they'll now convert and start investing. Sindo? It only means I've given them more money to waste. It's the same thing with our government. We will push them to increase their allocations and they'll increase them. But that just means we're giving them more money to waste. So I think we need to pay more attention on the accountability bit so that it translates to actual service delivery.
And just speaking from that point, Bunge la Mwananchi, I think in this panel, you're the only person who didn't see anything, any hope in this budget. And it's okay. I mean, totally understandable. But what are we doing in our space as Bunge Mwananchi? Bunge ya Mwananchi? What are we doing, or what do we feel? For example, if we are asked in this budget, so we are looking at the allocation and we feel there are priorities that should be put before others. So which ones are those? Who do you feel is benefiting in this budget? How can it be done differently? But also, what is Bunge la Mwananchi doing to ensure that we try and get out of this situation?
Could you repeat the question? I'm a bit distracted, so.
Who is distracting you?
Kasongo.
All right. Maybe I was just asking because, I mean, you painted a very realistic picture of how the citizen is feeling about this budget. So my first question was, what do you think should have been prioritized than what the government has prioritized? And two, what are you doing as Bunge la Mwananchi members to try and change the situation?
We wrote memoranda to Parliament asking them to review the law on public participation, that no longer becomes a perfunctory exercise, but becomes a realistic and meaningful exercise in which feedback counts. Tukisema hapa tumesema, for example, Gachagua must go ama must stay. Tumehesabiwa hizo kura, tumekubaliana kura 50 zilisema must go ama must stay. Tukisema tuna vote for a project, because public participation essentially, according to me, is supposed to be a vote. We are voting for a borehole. Tusiletewe choo. So we can see that Atiende Amolo is doing something about it. There's a bill in Parliament about public participation that is going to overhaul how public participation is done. Sio ile ukora tumezoea, wanakuja tu kuonekana. By the way, I was surprised. There's a friend of mine who received a notification to attend a public participation at 1 a.m. saa 7 ya usiku. Asa mimi nashangaa ya kwanza, kwani where was the venue? Alafu ya pili, kwani Kenya ishaingia 24-hour economy na sijui.
Clarification. Is it that the notification came at 1 a.m. or the public participation was supposed to be 1 a.m.?
The notification came at 1 a.m. and the notification was succinct. The public participation is being held right now at 1 a.m.
No way.
Yes. Kenya for you. I think they were too busy, so they just realized hapa usiku iko tu sawa.
So was it an online public participation?
No, mko na venue. Mnaambiwa Catholic University 1 a.m. Inaanza saa hii. We are done in 2 hours.
Wait a minute.
If you guys doubt me, naweza mwambia nitumie text alafu.
We need it. Please tell them to send the screenshots. We need to see.
Munitafuta.
Anyone else who has received such a message, it would be okay. Ama mnaogopa kamera. Nani ameambiwa aende public participation 1 a.m.?
The only thing I've seen is the distribution of bursaries at that 3 a.m. That one happens. But public participation, no, I haven't seen that.
Kwa nini upeane bursary 3 a.m.?
No, by the way, if you know a friend who has received that message,
I think
to pay your screenshot,
Angela,
we need to see it.
yes, I think information do come. Information directing people to attend those public participations. They do come, they can even come midnight, 1 a.m., that is agreeable. But this is Kenya. If 900 million had a computer error, 900 million had a computer error, if you can remember, do you? Then I cannot have a different opinion from my brother. It is possible.
At last
please
he agrees
proceed.
with me. See, everyone agrees with me. I cannot confidently tell you how much money we are raising from court fines, from Huduma centers, and from our passport fees. By the way, congratulations Bitok. Nasikia siku hizi unapea passport foreigners. How much money are we raising? Sasa wa Kenya ni kama sisi wote tushapata passport. Tumeenda international, tunapea hata watu wa huko nje passport za Kenya. Sasa si lazima tukue tuna raise pesa mingi ama? Tushamaliza kila mtu Kenya, tunapeana huko nje. We must be raising a lot, si ndio? I wouldn't go into court fines kwa sababu court itaniangalia na jicho mbaya. Nilikuwa nimewatetea hapo nyuma. Huduma centers, you know the story. So here is the reality. By the way, I don't know if this government is deluded or too ambitious or overzealous. How do you have a budget for 4.7 trillion shillings and you're planning to raise a revenue of 3.5 trillion shillings and you've never even raised 2.9 trillion shillings? The closest we came to raising anywhere close to 3 trillion was, I think, 2.8. Huko ingine in 2.4, 2.6, 2.7. Now we are miraculously raising 3.5 trillion. That's amazing. It's good news. We are going to borrow more than 1 trillion shillings. They have projected we were supposed to borrow 1 trillion shillings. Sasa hii ukiangalia kitu inakaa PE mzuri, 4.7 to raise 3.5 to borrow 1.1. Realistically, we are going to raise probably 3 trillion tukijaribu sana. Ama 2.8. So we are going to borrow another 700 on top of this 1.1. So we are going to borrow 1.8 or 2 trillion. So that's hii ni abracadabra jamani. It is a make-believe game. Mtu aliniambia budget is a projection of what you don't have na si lazima upate. And it is also sad that the office of the deputy president, the office of the president, state house, na hizi ofisi zenye ziko well connected. So unajua anajua huyu mwenye anajua huyu mwenye anajua huyu. By that I mean, these offices just have to call treasury where wachilia pesa yetu bwana. So they'll absorb all their money. State House absorbed its budget by 117%. 117% in my kidogo tu arithmetics yenye sijui sana, inamaanisha they overspent by 117%. So kama walipewa 8 billion, walispend probably 17 ama 18. Sasa situwape tu 17 mara moja. Shida ya kuwapea 17 mara moja, bado wata overspend hiyo 17. 3 months ago, Kithure Kindiki, the deputy president, was asking for 500 million shillings. And when you break down why he needed that money and why it was considered in that supplementary budget in the first place, alisema anataka pesa ya accommodation, alafu akaweka emphasis sana kwa transport and travel spending na kwa hospitality and entertainment. Si hao watu wakuje tu entertain for free. Alafu hii traveling lazima waende na chopa. Kwanza chopa zinaanguka siku hizi. Si waende tu na TX. Bwana tuko na mchezo mingi sana. You need 500 million shillings in 3 months. So you're absorbing somewhere between 120 to 150 million shillings per month. Bwana kwani tuko na pesa aje? Hata mimi sielewi. And they are abusing Article 223 that allows State House or any other well-connected office, probably including the Ministry of Interior, na maybe Ministry of, hiyo ingine mtajijazia. Overspend ama was spent without asking for concurrence from Parliament. So they spend, then Parliament approves later. Then why are we even budgeting? We need to scrap Article 223. Why would we let you spend, then seek approval later? It's not even approval. Yani ni kusema, bwana hii kitu yenye mnatengeneza hapo mimi sitafuata. Nitakuja na supplementary budget. There is a pandemic of supplementary budgets in Kenya, by the way. Nitakuja na supplementary budget, nitajiongeza pesa yenye nataka. Na if that is not enough, kama nahitaji maybe kupea wamama 64 shillings kwa chama mzima, nitaenda nitumie hiyo pesa alafu Parliament itapeana baadaye. Si Kindiki alipeana 64 bob. Pesa yetu yenye ama overspend. Bwana lakini hata uki overspend upewe watu pesa ya maana. So as I finalize, if our taxes do not work for us, we as the citizens carry the burden. We pay hidden costs when services fail. Services you're supposed to get for free or anywhere close to being free from the government. Citizens are buying water in Kenya. Nyinyi mnanunua maji kwenu. We're not supposed to pay for water. Na kama tunalipa inafaa kuwa pesa kidogo ya kutengeneza mfereji ya Kanjo Kituboka. Citizens are opting for private healthcare and private health insurance schemes. Citizens are opting for private security. By the way, nilisikia you can hire a police officer. That was interesting. I need to hire one. Citizens are resorting to alternative internet services because ile yenye tuliambiwa inakuja ya serikali ilifail. Ama nyinyi mmepata hiyo ya GOK kwenu? Na inafanya 6 months haijaisha. Very nice. We are also bearing the brunt of airtime costs because this government did not live up to its promise, and we are not making free calls as President William Ruto promised. So as I see it, we are bearing the heavy burden. It is all transferred to us. Na stima ikienda, tunarudi kwa generator. Na msidhani tumesahau, tumeenda kwa private tuition kwa sababu shule za public hazina walimu wanatosha. It's 100 students per teacher. Hazina desks, hazina textbooks, na zikikuja zinakuja mismatch. Mnalitoa textbook za physics 200 na nyinyi mlikuwa mmeitisha mbao. Alafu za CRE wanasema not important. Mnaweza refer to the Bible.
It's a very powerful perspective of the citizen, of how they are feeling. And I hope that we are not going to give up. I mean, that's the last thing we should do. But then we should be strategic on how we engage if we need to change the situation. So I want us to transition to plenary. I want us to go to plenary, but before we go, I want to give Michael just 1 minute. 1 minute. How is it? How are the traders? How are the informal workers taking the budget? And how are we prepared for the finance bill?
I don't know whether I've interacted with them or not, but I would say it in a simple language that they don't even understand what befell on them. They rely so heavily on what we are giving. It is a very devastating state of affairs that this finance bill is touching all corners. But let me say this, Angela. I know 1 minute may not be enough for me to articulate this matter. It's very important for us to understand that whether we like it or not, the budget will have to be there. That one is given. Whether we like it or not, it will keep on escalating from one stage to the other. Economists will tell you the reason behind it. I'm not an economist by profession. Article 223 that my brother alluded to gives the powers to the president to use in the event that the budget has not been passed by parliament and assented to by 30th of June. It gives the president the powers to use half of that estimate. Now that is where the issue is. Half of the estimate that is yet to be approved. Article 223 gives the president the powers to do that. Do they use the half? They go beyond, and even to some extent, even implement. One of the reasons as to why we are having this conversation is the point of austerity measures. You remember the SARS that worth 200,000 shillings? You remember that? The shoes that worth almost 500,000? And then, the deputy president's house. If 2024, the allocation was 2.7 billion, and we really came out and say, no, enough is enough. Then 2025, it was at 2.9. How much is it now? 2026, 2027? 3. What does that tell you? That it is us, right from the informal players, the sectors, the boda people, the mamamboga that had the conversation with, to the elites that are in this room and those that are good taxpayers, we must rise to the occasion and speak the language that good, we want to pay the tax. can that tax resonate with what we are being given? The service delivery is at the core of these taxes. I've just mentioned that they have taken away the mobile phone company business from the what we call the income tax, the VAT tax to the excise duty, saying that that is how to the extent that the business is going to be heavy. But aside from the finance bill, have you people or we as citizens tried to look at other bills that are already in parliament? How many of us have talked? She has mentioned about the Equalization Fund, which goes under DORA Act, the CARA Act, the CGAA Act. These are all areas that we need to interrogate, putting the finance bill aside. And in that respect, we will be able now to understand even why the issues of pending bills comes on board. Thank you. But the wananchi are really suffering. The business communities, it is being affected so heavily.
1 minute to Eve before we transition.
Okay, I really hope I can keep it into 1 minute, but I just wanted to make a small clarification about that new tax provision for the mobile phones. What is happening, there are three types of taxes that are being affected. One is the VAT for 16%. The second one is the importation declaration fees of 2.5%. And then the excise duty is 25%, as my colleague here said. But two of them are being taken away. One is being maintained. So really nothing is being introduced. They are just taking away two and maintaining one. So let me give you a very practical example. If you want to buy a phone for worth 10,000 shillings, when you do the calculation of 16%, that's 1,600, right? So you've saved 1,600 on top of the 10,000. The 2.5% you save 222 shillings. Then you go to the 25%, right? It's about 2,100 that will still be charged on the purchase of the phone. And of course, the manufacturer or the seller will always pass the costs to the end user or the consumer, right? So in that whole case, instead of paying 13,100 around there, you'll pay what? 11,000 for the phone. So you see, it's still somewhat helpful because it's the taxes imposed on the purchase of the phone has gone down. Also, I wanted to mention, we always focus the conversation on the expenditure side of things, but it's also important to know where the government intends to get the money that we're going to spend from, right? So, as we said earlier, the target is 3.4 trillion to raise, right? And part of it is going to be raised through ordinary revenue by KRA at 2.9 trillion. There's something I heard Mbadi saying, our Minister of Finance, on TV, that there's not going to be any new taxes in this financial year. The Finance Bill 2026 says something totally different. So in the last finance bill, KRA were able to increase their collections by 30 billion. This current finance bill is proposing to collect 4 times. That's 120 billion. Where do you guys think the money is going to come from? It's going to come from us, some one way or another. They must hit their target. They hit their target in the last finance bill. They had targeted 2.55, they got 2.57. This time around, you've seen they want to get 2.9 trillion. You see, so by hook or by crook, they will get that 120 billion, and it's going to come from me and you. So Hapo, I don't think the minister was being forthcoming with information, or he was being economical with the truth, because the numbers don't lie. From 30 to 120 is a significant amount of money to raise, a significant increase. That's basically 4 times. So the other source, I mentioned it was total is 3.4, 2.9 from KRA, and then there's 0.5 trillion from appropriation in aid. I know this is another monster that we are not very familiar with, appropriation in aid, or AIA. This is the amount of money that is raised by ministries, departments, and agencies. So the Ministry of Health, ukienda kwa health facility yako, you'll pay they'll expect you to pay like a consultation fee. So that money, hapo awali, the expectation was the health departments or the health facilities will send that resources or that money to the consolidated fund first, and then they will be reallocated those resources. But the health facilities complained and said it's frustrating the running of the hospital facility, because they'll find themselves without any money to buy medication or pay their staff, maybe buy disinfectants and other things that help them run the facility. So it was agreed upon that they will be able to, they can maintain the appropriation in aid or the resources they raise and utilize it as they wait for the disbursements from the national government. So that is also another source of revenue that the government is anticipating to raise, and it is going to be in the amount of 0.5 trillion. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. And just to emphasize on that, that appropriation in aid is going to affect the cost of accessing public services. So, yeah, get ready. Prepare, because, I mean, like Eve has said, we have to raise this money, and it has already been budgeted for anyway, so I hope we are ready. So I want James to give one addition, and then I pass the mic to the audience.
I don't know which version of the finance bill I have, but the version I have has a 5% tax on mitumba. Is that the official version? The 7.5% rent is also the street version. So there isn't a tax on rent. There isn't a tax on rent.
No. So we had the white copy and we had the green copy. Let us refer to the green copy.
Okay.
Because that is the official document.
That notwithstanding, I think we need to get back to...
But of course, I think I have a clip. The CS said it is coming. I think it's something that is in the pipeline, only that it is not in the finance bill. So as at now, we say it is not in the finance bill, but it might be coming. Just as we had been promised that the bans were going to be adjusted, and then they were not. So it is not in the finance bill. So, and I think I also want to encourage us. Most of the times we have a lot of, so our leaders will stand and say things, promise things, declare that this is going to be done, but we know that most of those things, if it is not in the budget, most of the times, it is hot air. And that's why we need to interrogate these documents. So, I mean, there's a lot of information out there, and what I would advise us to do, we refer to official documents. And where do we find them? In official government sites. So we have the National Treasury website, the Parliament, all those official websites. We need to be very careful that we refer to the official documents.
Well answered. But with this government, something is always coming. How much has been budgeted for public participation? Anyone? There's no budget? Supposed to be supplementary? Does anyone have those figures? As you look into that, I also need to ask a few more thorny questions. Albert Ojwang was killed for this, by the way, for exposing the corruption in the police service. How much money are we raising from traffic fines? That's euphemism, by the way. It's not even a fine. Nihongo, straightforward, 50 bob. Ama ushuke kwa hiyo gari. Cost of living control.
Anasema imepanda.
Imepanda ni 100. Imepanda na mafuta.
Yeah.
If we can tap in the amount of money we raise from traffic hash money, hapo niko sure tunapata kitu kama 200 million ya kila siku haraka haraka. ya kila siku. Sitasema I have the numbers, but I might have them. How much money are we raising from kanjo fines, in quotes fines, because it is not a fine? We mama toa hizo machungu hapa ama tubebe hiyo kitu. How much money? There's no receipt for it, nothing, no invoice, nothing. How much money are we raising from our irrigation schemes? Najua mkumbuka social studies, sijui Mwatebere, sijui Pekera, sijui. How much money? Hizi irrigation schemes zetu ni tufunge tu ama ni aje? Because they sell their final product. Kuna zenye zimepanda rice, zingine mahindi, kitunguu, some floriculture and so on. How much money are we raising? So that's why we need to focus on the revenue estimates. And the last thorny question, as I give my solution, which might be probably out of place, how much money are we raising from minerals? And why is the government afraid to answer that question? How much money are we raising from royalties? From the licensing of artisanal miners, small scale and large scale miners in Kenya? How much money are we raising from the minerals themselves? I do not want to go into the Pandora box. Yeah, some minerals coming from South Sudan and Congo being shipped out of Kenya through JKIA. Wacha tubaki tu kwa hizi zetu. Zenye mmeficha kwa conservancies na wildlife. Hizo national parks. How much money? That's where the problem is. Our parliament does not robustly discuss revenue estimates. They put all the emphasis on expenditure. I have never seen this absurdity anywhere on earth. You're always budgeting. You're always spending. But you never think of how to make that money. Hata wewe, kwa hesabu zako, kuna hesabu kidogo yenyewe unasema, mzazi hapa anipe black tax, brother yangu mwenye akumajua tume kitu, alafu kwa mjengo hapo niokote 2, mwisho wa mwezi niko na hii, you can survive. I don't think this government makes a deliberate effort to discuss that. And that is why, as bunge la mwananchi, we think it is about time the citizens of this country drafted their own budget. Does it look far-fetched? Is it a solution? Can we show them how it is done? So we have an initiative to draft, quote unquote, the people's budget. I think TISA would come in handy here. We need to present our own version of the budget to the CS Treasury, not in any way trying to mock that office, but in a way trying to send probably realistic estimates of what we think the government should focus on. And maybe perhaps for the first time, if we drive this as a national exercise, it would be the biggest public participation we've ever had. So you've collected all your views into one budget, and this is the budget we want. Hiyo ingine, wacha tutumie kwa hii mwaka. Lakini hiyo mwaka ingine, hii ndio tunataka. Kwa sababu, hizi views zetu kwa public participation, zinatupaa kwa karatasi, kwa dustbin after tumemaliza. Na hiyo story imeishia hapo. Whether mpewe 500 ama 200, as long as mlikunywa chai, hiyo story tumemaliza. Si tulipiga picha. Very nice. Finished. Done. Haya.
Lakini kama public participation hizo za 1 AM, we see why. But anyway, thank you very, very much. We'll be coming back maybe with our final remarks, but I want to open up this conversation. I want us to go to the audience. We will pass the mics. Questions to our panelists, concerns that we have. So we are going to take first 3 questions. We come back to our panelists and then come back for more questions.
Before we even get the questions, have they not done a good job? We need to appreciate them. Imetosha.
The 3 questions, I think I saw 1, 2, and 3. Yes. Who's the third person? There was John. We've taken note of your hand. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Doma Sayaro from Kangwale, that is KPAT organization. It's not a question per se, but as our panelist was trying to notify us, let us not get excited with these numbers, because the details of the implementation, that's where now the elephant in the room is. The misses, but I'll start with the win with this finance bill. I don't want to say that there was no win. The only win that I was able to capture from this finance bill is that there was no major trigger for protests. Remember the finance bill 2024? The government, under the head spokesperson of the government, who is the duty bearer of this nation, blamed it into the kind of communication, because there was misinformation, disinformation. Now thereafter, they sat down, they started to know how they will be quoting the messages with the sweetening words so that you feel it is a very good document. But for that one, it is an A+. That's why we may not have a major trigger. But if we happen to go into now the implementation details of it, definitely Kenyans will come up with something. I wanted to give an example from the education sector, which is really struggling in Kenya. Do you remember there is a time the duty bearers of education were asked, how much does it cost to offer education service to a learner, maybe from grade 1 to grade 8? Were they able to answer that? They didn't. So they don't know what it costs to offer education to one learner in that the whole system of it. But by the end of the day, they will come up with an estimate budget of what we are going to give to that ministry. How did they get now that estimate? The experts that we were told before they became an experts to the government, when they were outside, they were telling us how we are supposed to be coming with a zero-based budget. I don't know whether I'm the only one who had that. Isn't it? There was that kind of scenario. We start with zero-based. And to me, that was meant like we should be having itemized cost. Before we come to the estimate budget, if you are going to start an entrepreneurship entity, you want to open up a kiosk, you should start by what will it cost for me to get a kg of sugar, a kg of fat, so that you get the total cost that you are going to use to start up that business, and then what are you going to give as the pricing of the? Does the government do that? The only people, we have some people who sit in the boardroom and come up with the numbers. But you find there is most recently where the head teachers or the head of institutions in schools were complaining that the capitation they got in school, it's only 22 shillings per annum. Am I the only one who had that? 22 shillings per annum. The capitation, leave alone what we are told the government that is supposed to give the capitation. But the money that you got into schools, it was only 22 shillings per annum. Can that 22 shillings really run the school? That's why you see the schools are really struggling. Because capitation or the disbursement of monies normally don't get into schools because we have 50, 30, 20 rule. The ratio in the way the monies are supposed to be dispersed to schools. That is 50% term 1, 30% term 2, 20% term 3. Does that work in schools? It doesn't. So you find that in these ones, even if we see that the Ministry of Education has about 700 billion, where we have the proposed, which was supposed to, the proposed budget to basic education as 134 billion, while the basic education needed 245. Though we don't know how they got those numbers, because they did not itemize what is supposed to be given. Already, you see what is going to get there by the end of the day it is nothing. That's why the head of institutions will also continue crying. Now, here you find that the finance bill always keeps on raising the revenue. But it is not now bridging the gap that is always there. You find that that one also is an issue. Now, what the misses are, you find that there is no relief for the cost of living. We did not see anything like the cut of VAT on basic goods. Yeah, as I conclude now, the VAT cost, we didn't see the basic goods getting those cuts. I also say the KRA is missing its target, because in this finance bill, we don't see also how they are going to seal the gaps or the holes where the corruption now gets in. That's what makes the KRA not meeting its targets. Then, I can also say that there is something that was introduced. The periods in which, when you are supposed to be filing your returns. For MSMEs, when we don't have the clear systems of the KRA, definitely by the 4th month, you may not be able to file those returns. And that's where you are going to now to start getting penalties. So in these things, if we look into details, we are going to get something to protest for. But for the finance bill, it is just as sweet as it is talked.
Thank you. Tupendane, so tukue as brief as possible and to the point. Yes.
So as I was sitting here, actually the seat was getting hotter. And my question will come at the end after I've made a few clarifications, a few comments on some issues. Yes, Sonia, I'm cognizant of the time. So the manufacturing and industrialization sector at 0.8, it's alarming. As I was growing up, the Juakali sector was one of the backbone of the employment for the people. We rely so much on importations. It's a very disheartening thing, because we are supposed to promote Kenya and build Kenya and go to Singapore. But if our focus is now, most of the time we find that most of the things we are importing from China, when will our own industry grow? The small and medium enterprises are rapidly fading because of the stringent taxation that are imposed on them. As I was growing up also, we used to be told in GHC that agriculture is our backbone. And I was happy when Eva mentioned that the allocation for agriculture is drastic, it's quite low, because I'm trying to wonder how that amount can enable us to feed ourselves, let alone even export what we are supposed to export. And that is why we'll find that at some later time we'll kind to find that people will be dying of hunger because we are not able to produce, and then we'll be told we need to import maize. I don't know from where. I don't know why we are surprised that the executive has gotten a bigger budget, because for me, it's not surprising, because nowadays corruption is pre-planned. So if it is given a bigger budgeting, is because you cannot be able to question what it has done. But if more allocation is given to other sectors, then we'll be able to question. So my other concern is about senior citizens. The allocation of 41, that million. You try to check, we have more than 3.2 million over senior citizens who are supposed to get like 2,000 per month, which is usually paid twice after every 2 months or even quarterly. If you do that calculation, if you make if you just use 3.2, multiply by 2,000 and then divide by that amount, tell me how many months the senior citizens will be able to get that stipend. And given that the agriculture sector has been reduced, the main concern of the senior citizen is to feed. And if they are not even able to feed, you find that there is more allocation. I am wondering why there is more allocation in housing and urban development, like 5.8%, and agriculture is 2.7%. That is exactly over twice the allocation for agriculture. So it's a great concern. And as CSOs that are seated here, it was mentioned that we have different stages of budget process. What can we do as a mitigation or contingency? Because the estimates have already been given, but what can we do to counter or salvage this situation? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it morning or afternoon?
Almost there.
Good morning, taxpayers. My name is John Mushori. I work with an organization called Bunge Mashinani. And I'll be straight to the point. But before I proceed. Eva, just confirm to me, in every 100 shillings, we always know that 68 to 70 shillings we pay debts, ndio? So tunabaki na 30 shillings. So out of the 30 shillings, ndo tunaangalia the ratio of 70 to 30. So we are working with 30 shillings. On that basis, we are looking at 4.82 trillion with a deficit of 1.1 billion, yeah? Which Eva stated that 890 billion we are borrowing domestically. And of course, we know where. And these banks, we know who they own these banks, right?
Yeah.
Also, she went ahead and stated that the recurrent is 3.54 with the development of 749 billion. Now, my question is, how much are we paying for debt, all right, with this, in regards to principal and also the interest, okay? In regards to development, we look at 749 billion. And through my research, I understand that 1 kilometer of a rural road, of a tarmac rural road, is 80 million. That of an urban is 250. That of a highway is 900 million. If we're really looking at 479 billion for development, and the cost of, for instance, doing a road is such, quite a high number, what are we looking when we are saying that we want to do development? Thank you.
Thank you, John. I was guided 3 first, and then the next lot will come. So anyone who wants to take any question to respond to any, I can share the mic.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll begin with where Thomas stopped. He had raised concern on education, and even looking at, as a country, we don't even know the cost of educating a child and things like that. I think when you look at the program-based budgets, we have overall objectives, right? So even for education, we have overall objectives. And I think for education, it usually matters access, quality, relevance, equity. And I think we are very inclined towards the access bit. So we just want to enroll students. But do we look at the end of after they're finished? Was it relevant? Was it equitable? You know, I think all government documents should speak to each other, right? If the education sector had specific objectives, that is what should be financed. So their objective should not just end at, we enrolled this number and they finished school. So no, how did they finish school? Do we look at the grades? Because that is also translating. Do we just want to pay school fees? Or are these people employable, right? Sasa, when we're looking at the cost of education or educating a child, that is what we need to look at. And I think right now we're in the CBC, we're implementing a new framework. There are clear learning outcomes at every stage. That is what we should be looking at. Are we achieving this? Yes, we enrolled this number, but how many of them have literacy, numeral literacy, digital, there are those specific outcomes, but are we looking at that? We're just saying, tulisema, how many, specific number walienda grade 10, but how many of them are able to do what we expect them to do at grade 10? I think that's a problem we have, not just in education, in most of these other sectors. We're just financing, na tuanze na zero-based, chenye tulikuwa tukifanya 2010. The budget lines are the same, tuzieke tu pesa. Sindo? We want to just fund, we don't care. But then now looking at the numbers for education, I think the bigger proportion has been going to TSC, that is recurrent. But we still have a shortfall of teachers, despite this. We know the teacher to learner ratio in public schools, not private, not as public za Nairobi, public marginalized schools. We know, shout, 1 to? It's 1 to 40. On paper or on ground? Not what it should be, what it is. Do we visit these schools? It is 1 to? Let's say it depends, but your 1 to 40, it's very ideal. But qua ground, that's not the case. Despite TSC always consistently receiving the bigger proportion of the education budget, then there's basic education, which basic education and higher learning, they come closely, not closely, they come second, but not closely. Wameachana na a big percentage, but still basic education is supposed to cater for primary education, secondary education. Inaishi hapo? Okay, great. And then there's higher learning. So I think even interrogating this budget per sector, the allocations are not even, and then we are not following to see, are we actually achieving the outcomes that we intended to? Because it's not just enough to put money. What is the money translating to? Thank you.
I will pick up from there, and I'll tell you that a quite number of our officials, they are still living in denial. They don't want to believe that the 2010 constitution came with a lot of changes and transformation, and Kenyans are aware. So when you ask about the budget and how much we are paying, we will even tell you that they even don't know how much they are paying. Why? Do they even read those budget documents? Kia Mutata will tell you from the research that Kenya is not even paying any debt. Research-based, not just hearsay. They will tell you. But we are told we are paying, and we are really paying. So who are we paying? That should be the next question. Who are we paying? When a construction of this, how do we call it? The expressway came into existence. We asked questions, hard questions. Even from TISA, they understand that. Were we given the budget, the documents? Those documents were private and confidential. But the PFM talks about having these documents in place, public participation and scrutiny. The PPP that they are talking about. Right now, they are running towards the Rironi construction. The other His Excellency was here. Do you even know what they talked? We were only told what was signed. So that is where the problem is. They do not want to accept the realities. They do not want to live in this dispensation. They carried the old order system to the new generation that we are in. And that's why they cannot tell you how much. They will stand up and tell you that the figures you are telling us of the transition, of 100% transition is true. Those figures are manufactured by some NGOs somewhere, whom we don't even know. And the result, the report indicates with the logo of TSC. How do you get that as an NGO, from our own understanding, a report that has an official document of a government? And that very government stands and tells you, this is not a true picture. You know, sometimes I like what Citizen does. You speak the other side, then break the reality this side. And now we balance. Now the question is, you as a citizen, whom do you believe? How do you address that? So that we engage them in a meaningful way that would make sure they align to what, that is the elephant in the room. How can the government align to the documents that they have? If we are paying debts, whom are we paying those debts to? And how much are we paying? They will tell you the figures that you will not even believe. So it is high time. And I will call upon Kenyans. It is high time. The time has been high, but it's doubling now. That we add the high to the highest so that we can have the voices in this document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I want to answer the lady that spoke, then I can come to the debt question. She was saying, what can be salvaged in this situation? Currently, I think today is the last day for public participation on the budget estimates. It's been going around the country. Nowadays, they do it on a regional basis. So it's not guaranteed that it will be done in your county. There was a whole roster of the venues of where you can go and give in your views. But there's also an opportunity to send your memos to Parliament. I think the deadline is next week on Monday. So I think the best thing I can advise you guys to do is, it's very difficult to evaluate the whole budget and give a submission on the whole budget. Even us in the budget fraternity, what we do is we divide ourselves amongst sectors. It's easier for you to make submissions on the sector you're used to, you are passionate about, as compared to evaluating that whole 1,000+ page budget book. So you can do this amongst yourself. If you're passionate about gender, you can do a gender submission. If you're passionate about health, and health is wide, so if you're passionate about communicable diseases or lifestyle diseases, you can organize yourselves and make a submission. So it's not too late for now. But one of the biggest mistakes I see citizens doing is, once you have given out your input during this public participation process, you don't come back and look at the approved document. This document is going to be deliberated upon in Parliament. Then Parliament will make some changes. So there'll be a final document. Once this document is in Parliament, it becomes an appropriation bill. When the president signs those budget estimates, it becomes an appropriation act. Sasa inakuwa sheria. So most of us, we stop here. Nilienda public participation, nilituma memo, but you don't come and check the approved budget document. Hiyo ndio msema kweli. And then as we heavily discussed about the supplementary budgets, which usually come 2-3 months after the approved budget. Now the supplementary becomes the new budget. So if you look keenly, you'll see there's a possibility of some of the things you thought have been approved have now been shifted in the new supplementary. And there's no law of how many supplementaries the government can go up to. I think the most supplementaries we had was during COVID-19. Yeah? So it's important for us to also know that we need to keep checking. Yeah? Unfortunately, it's very difficult for us to tell whether resources have been used effectively, because the whole budget cycle takes 2.5 years. By the time the Auditor General is doing an audit, 2.5 years have lapsed. So you see how also corruption can continue, because we do not catch it early enough. The whole budget cycle takes a long process. But on the other hand, we have implementation reports that the Controller of Budget removes or releases on a quarterly basis. That is what is going to show you what your county is doing. Yeah? So we can, while we wait for the audit reports, we have the Controller of Budget reports, which is churned out in a quarterly basis and can inform you on implementation. It can help you track. I had someone saying follow the money. Once you see, you're able to retrieve that document from their website, you can tell per sector how your county is implementing projects and programs. So about the debt, the debt we are paying, it falls under the consolidated fund. I had mentioned there's 1.1 trillion that is has been allocated towards the not the consolidated fund, the consolidated fund services. So there's an allocation of 1.1 trillion. So I'm not very sure about the exact figure of how much I think that's something we can go back and check from the budget. And it's difficult to get that information like very outright about the exact amount, because as you know, our debt keeps on increasing per hour, by the hour. Now we are at approximately 11.8 trillion at the moment, and it keeps on rising. There's one of our colleagues, I think from IEA, if you go to their website, they have a dashboard for calculating the amount of public debt, and you'll see the numbers keep changing right there. So per hour, because of the exchange rates and all these other economic factors, our public debt is consistently increasing. So this is more reason for us to do what? To ensure that we are tracking how our government is spending resources, and we can do this in our own way, from your own communities. Yeah, once you know the plans or the programs that have been scheduled in your area, it's also up to you to act as a watchdog to ensure that vitu haziendi vibaya, si ndio? And then you also report misuse of funds in your wards, in your constituencies, in your counties, to the appropriate state individuals. Thank you.
Yes. I'm responding to first the question on how much we're repaying as debt. Well, I think this information would be gotten from the office of there's an office domiciled under the National Treasury for national debt. Mnajua hiyo? Na hiyo ofisi inafanyaga nini jameni? Tumeenda hapo trying to get clarification on most of these things. We told them to give us an audit of all the money we've borrowed, who we owe this money to, how much we've repaid, and not trying to get people to protest. But given that we've had this perennial problem ya public participation, bado itaendelea kuwa cosmetic because it is not a standalone item yenye inakuwa budgeted kivyake. Public participation in Kenya is still classified under administration cost, stakeholder engagement, policy formulation, committee sittings of parliament, consultative forums, yara yara. So it has never been budgeted for. Say in your budget ya public participation, it is 1 billion shillings to divide equal ministries. Impate yenu. So that has not been done. I'm not saying we're supposed to demonstrate. I'm just pointing out issues that are contentious. We've also not had a robust civic education from the Ministry of Treasury and from IBC. IBC gets a budget for voter education somewhere between 500 to 600 billion, depending on the cycle. Kama tuko karibu na elections, 2021 and 2022, they got 600, I think, million shillings. Siko sure kama ni million or billion. You could check that out. But they did not absorb these funds. If they did, probably somewhere in the tune of 10% or 20%. Because they are not probably proactive about this. Sisi ndo tunajielimisha. Si basi mweke kitu kwa syllabus. Tuache kujifunza. It is too costly. Tufunze tukiwa kwa high school na primary. Same goes for treasury. If I said I have a cash award right now, na mtu asiangalie kwa simu ya the budget making process ya Kenya, flow tu nayo kuanzia mwanzo hadi mwisho, I'm sure we will not get more than 10 answers. Because the Ministry of Treasury is not investing in civic education. See, they cannot budget for it. They just don't want to. There's no push. No one is pushing them. So tutabaki hapo with our guesses. Ndio sababu unasikia kuna finance bill moja ya rent na ingine ya mitumba. Na mtu ajui anaenda kuangalia wapi the right one. Hatujui budget policy statement na appropriations bill, appropriations act na finance bill na budget tofauti ni gani. Sasa unaona shida penye iko as I wind up. And the simplified budget summary from Treasury is too technical. It is full of jargon and it is fragmented. They need to have one summary. Moja ya budget policy statement, ya finance bill, ya budget zote pamoja. Nikimaliza sasa kabisa. Youths are not represented in these budget committees. They are not. So sisi tuende public participation yenye haina budget, alafu mjipange huko mbele. And I need to throw a challenge to all of us, because I see 70% of people in this room are young. Can we perhaps figure out some other way to organize beyond protests? They are already used to this language. It's boring to them. It's too predictable. We will not protest till 2027. If we were to shed that, probably, I don't want to say attitude, but if we were to shed that disposition and we probably pivoted to something else, can we think of organizing differently and mobilizing differently? As Mike put it, the challenge. We have had by-elections in this country. Hakuna young people kwa hizi by-elections. Na wenye wako, sisi hatuwa support. Oh, huyo mimi simjui. Wakikuitisha pesa ya kutoa poster, mimi sina. So we need to have one pool, one party for the young people, one organization, one mobilization. Morara might have been delusional to some. He might have stolen our resources, but we can still regain the mojo. Doesn't mean that Morara stole, just because Morara stole from us. Ati sasa youth mobilizing and organizing should stop. We need to rethink this. Otherwise, tunaingia 2027, tuseme kila mtu asimame independent, kila mtu afanye mambo yake, and the big parties are going to trounce us, because UDA itaekelea pesa na machinery vizuri. Same with DCP, sisi tutabaki hapo ukisema wewe ni independent na campaign na baiskeli.
Thank you for that reaction. There's something that I think John asked in regards to interest, and I think the document that I read, as per the day they published it, the domestic interest payment was about 986.7 billion, and then for foreign interest it was 267.5 B. Please, tumeagree hapa documents tunasoma ni mingi mingi. So let's also try and get to read it. It's as technical as Mulab, almost butchered your name, Mulamba says, but find interest, as Eve has said, find your sector and be as invested as possible in that sector. Another question that the lady who was seated there asked, what do we need to do? Eve, when she was speaking, it was interesting to listen to you. She asked us not to wait until now to engage. They kept on saying the budget cycle, the budget cycle. I am hoping that at least 75% of us know the stages. This is at the second, but how many of us participated in the first? How many of us, by show of hand, went to the sector hearing, except John, because I saw him? How many of us attended yes, and Nelly? So tukifika hapa, we are all surprised. But there was something that was happening before here. And after now, there's something is going. Next year, tutakutana the same room, asking the same questions. As Mulaba has reminded us, the final call is to us. Sisi wenyewe tuchukue hiyo jukumu, because tumebebwa ufala for too long. For those of us who review county documents, do you sometimes ask yourself, this one has just been copy-pasted? Like you look at it and you're sure no one has seen it, because that document is too big for a common person to review. But they take advantage, juu wanajua Kenyans hatufanyangi nini? Hatusomi. Na mpaka hapa tumeona hatusomi vizuri, but tuta improve. Sindio? I need the next set of questions, and Mulai can tell me how much time we have. There was a guy, I remember him, and then I've seen Nelly, and then this one will have women, because the other one had just one. So we'll have you. And then we have, Mulai will give me another extra round. So we have the gentleman at the back, we have Nelly, and the lady in a pink, almost pink. Yes. Who took the mic? Apana, give power to the one first. We will come to you, and then this other gentleman and the lady. Those are the next rounds. Be as brief and straightforward to the question or comment.
Okay, well. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
I will be brief. My name is Oluoch Babu from BLM. And before I ask a question, I have a slight point of view on the financial proposal that is currently before the parliament that was drafted on 30th April. And this financial draft is something the beloved patriot of the fourth estates need to know what is inside it, because the draft has several extensions, because we have a new section that have been inserted on Mitumba. That is section 12H, whereby it has been proposed 5% have been deemed profit on the Mitumba, whereby if, because you know the burden is going to the people, most of the sellers who consume Mitumba, because it's affordable to the people of the low classes, whereby you get a person purchasing a Mitumba worth, a bale worth 1 million, is going to pay 50,000 Kenya shillings, regardless of whether you make profit or not. So I think the member of parliament is supposed to scrutinize this before it is being amended, because should this draft is supposed to scrutinize it first before it goes. Because currently the allocation that is supposed to, the proposed allocation to go into the education system, and I listened to one of the principals above in front asking if there is the comrade in the house. There is no any capitation that the current comrades are receiving from the government. Currently, we are confirming as co-allocation of 16% allocation rather than the previous financial year of the 2025-2026. Currently, the previous was currently have been increased by 65 billion, making it to be 767, or the previous was 702 billion. But how this allocation is going to be used? Because the reality is that we cannot put the reality under the carpet. Those principles in the docket of education are mismanaging the funds. So I think the cabinet secretary that is currently there into the finance have been planted there as the scapegoat for any kind of the protest. Now, my question, I will superimpose them into two, because I was having 82 questions. So
Stick to the two. Stick to the two.
yeah, that's why I'm saying that I'm superimposing to two. So on the 25% fund. Was the 5% presumptive tax rate arrived at, and what data shows that Mitumba trader operate on a 5% profit margin? Will KRA adjust the rate if actual margins are lower? So that is my point. I raise my case.
Thank you. 25% and 5%. Next. Yes.
Good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Nelly Chepkemoi. I have a comment and a question.
Yes.
My comment is that I note there are some data gaps in the budget, especially in the education sector. So my interest is in the education sector. When you look at the economic survey that was just released recently for 2026, the education sector there says that we have an enrollment of 8.23 million learners, yeah? But when you look in the budget, the Ministry of Education is targeting 6.26 million learners. So already it is deliberate, or rather they are showing us deliberately that they are under budgeting. It's quite shocking, because this means we are leaving out 1.9 million children just unaccounted for. So the government does not even know where 1.9 million kids are going to be catered. I'm speaking for basic education. That is the one that covers primary to secondary school. Again, on the data gap, and I think this will go to an interest to Eve, because we also seem to be having the same interest in the food safety. So my issue then now becomes on the school meals again. If we have the target of the government in the budget enrolling students at 6.26 million learners, then why are we budgeting for the school meals for only 2.3 million learners? So those are some of the data gaps that I note. I wanted to highlight that as a comment. Now, as a question to all panelists, linking it now to debt, because I want to believe debt and budget does not go, they literally linked together. So we are talking of a budget of 4.8 trillion, but is it really 4.8 trillion? Because when you talk about the
we can actually do something and we can actually show up for our country. And from that time, no politician speaks about this country without mentioning the Gen Zs. Sindio? But bado hata tukiuliwa hapo kwa barabara, au watu bado walipitisha hiyo finance bill. Walipitisha ama wakupitisha. Tulisema no, but walisema watapitisha bado. That shows us that when it comes to finance bill na hizi bills zingine, there are other powers that actually influence those processes. For example, the party committees, sindio, parliamentary caucuses, hizo vitu party leaders kama baba, sindio, si watu wake walivote finance bill, yes, watu wengi, sindio, watu wa UDA. Iyo inaonyeshaje? Inaonyesha kama venye amesema, lazima sisi tuseme, lazima tuparticipate. Kwa hii room najua huwa tunamobilize our politicians. Wakikuja kwa mtaa, sindio? So tunafanya mobilization. Kwa nini sisi tusifanye mobilization to produce leaders wetu? For example, nani hapa ashai participate kwa nomination process? Ukaenda ukasema, sindio? Mi nawauliza. For example, kama sisi wote tunasema, kila mtu, kama una participate kwa hii chama, we participate. But ikifika hiyo time ya nomination, si young people tunasema, tunataka huyu jamaa ndio to represent, si ndio? Tunaenda tunamvotia, because at the end of it all, these parties will always influence our processes. And if we do not have, these parties produce people who are at the ballot. Na sasa hao ndio tunaenda tunasema mimi ni wa UDA nitachagua huyu na huyu na huyu. Tushachaguliwa already, but kwa nini tusikue kwa hiyo process ya kuchagua kutoka hapo kwa nomination? Kwa nini tusiseme? Because if the ballot does not produce reformers, we cannot expect to get reform outcomes.
Okay, thank you. I had been told about 9 minutes ago that I have 10 minutes. So I have 1 more minute left. If the panel can allow me to just take the 3 hands that we had, so that when we come, we respond once. Tusirudi back huko. I only had 3 hands. If you are sure you are in the 3 hands, stand. Because I am given the power to choose the actual 3 hands, the lady, you will stay, the gentleman and the gentleman in red. The rest of you, no, I'm not biased. You're in green. The gentleman in a red coat, you're good. So these are the people, Tom.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Omaida from Bunge Mashinani School of Governance, and I'm a civic educator. Number 1, I would love to speak on just a few things. Listening to the conversation about the budget, there's one thing I picked, that our budget has such a political aspect in it. I guess you all heard that. And it got me thinking a few things as a civic educator, that we who, the many of us in this room, are representation of the many out there. Let's also take that into account. And so, well, maybe we may be Mama Mboga. What does that mean? I've heard of the gens and their impact, but I'm also thinking they may be in numbers, but does that mean that I've heard of a comment that they need to address issues differently? Because being young, being youth, does not necessarily mean you have the facts. And not only have the facts, but would you really be able to explain? Like, I've heard that before, that many came out there in their numbers, but if you asked, what about the finance bill? They are also falling into that gap that they would not be able to address that. So as a civic educator, I'm asking, if the people don't even understand these things, how do they hold their leaders accountable, yet themselves do not even understand it?
Thank you. The question I get there is, if people do not understand, how do they hold their leaders accountable? Please try to be very brief. Try and try. The one who has the mic, you can go as we fix that.
Wakenya oye, muko salama. So I'm Muriithi Melvin. I'm a counseling psychologist by profession and also part of the Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association and the Mental Health Coalition Front. And thank you, TISA, for organizing this. And especially we could do a lot of collaborations on this. Direct to the point. I'm concerned on the health sector, which I think my brother hajajibiwa. Maybe I can bring the representation here being from that field. Now, under the health sector, we are seeing that the allocation is 7.3% out of the 15% of the Abuja declaration. Yet, as he was saying, alluding, matters mental health, people are committing suicide daily. And counselors and psychologists, maybe for us who don't know, we are 5,834 gazetted counselors and psychologists under MOH, gazetted by the Counselors and Psychologists Board. How then can we bridge this gap to help individuals, battle or conquer with mental health issues, yet the primary health care fund allocation is 23.1 billion, and imagine out of the 23.1 billion, it is yet reduced to 19.1 billion, and people think when they hear about health, pesa inaenda wapi? Madhare. So kindly, that's my submission. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Kingstar. I'm a musician by profession, and I'm a civic educator also. I represent Bunge Mashinani initiative here, and I have a couple of questions, and the first one will go to the host. How do we follow up on the findings of this meeting after this? And the other one will go to the panelists. The creative economy, the creative industry has not been recognized as an industry in the budget. If you look at the figures, 500 million for a whole country, it's I think it's not enough. This year, they are, in the next financial year, they'll be allocating around 1 billion, which I think is not enough. And the reason is the creative economy is maybe the greatest weapon that you can use to go against the government. Look what they did to Rikomondi the other time, just the other day. They denied him the opportunity to hold an event. It is because they know what the creatives can do. And then the other question is on public participation, because the government we have seen has not allocated anything, while the constitution has, and I don't think the constitution is the backbone of our budget, as Michael had said. I think selfishness is the backbone of our budget, because our constitution is the second best constitution in Africa, if not the best. It is the second, if implemented in the right way. But we have selfish people who we have chosen to work for us. So what do we do about public participation? Because it is a function of the county government, but the county government is not doing anything. And if it does, it bribes people to do what they want them to do. That is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope we have taken note of very many of the questions. But just to remove one from your bucket, the one on excise duty, please let us leave here knowing that it's not introduced. It has been clarified here. So let us not leave here saying that imewe. Can we please not see you on those bite shots that TV saying that imeongezwa, please? Represent us well outside there, okay? Any one of you can take any question. Who's ready? You're ready, okay.
I'll start with the comment on public participation. According to the County Governments Act, every county is supposed to allocate 5% of its audited budgets to public participation. But what you'll see, most counties don't do it. And I agree with you. We need to, first of all, move from public participation to public deliberation. We don't want to continue the trend that has been. For us to come, we are told what is in store for us. We give our input, it is not taken, because good practice dictates that the county government or the national government entity will then come back and tell us or publish a public participation report telling us, this is what we picked, this is what we didn't pick, and this is why. And then give us a plan. Are you planning to do this maybe in the next financial year? Because as we know, resources are always scarce. So we want a situation whereby we are deliberating with government on the kind of projects and programs they are to put. And then another thing is on the school feeding. I happen to be supporting some school feeding people somewhere. And indeed, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda by the president had committed 9.4 billion annually towards the school feeding, but as we can see, they're only able to spend 4.6. So of course, this is locking out a lot of children from the school feeding program. Why should children in Nairobi County benefit, yet someone in a kid in Marsabit is not benefiting from the same program? Are they a child of a lesser God? I don't think so. This should be a project that is benefiting all children in Kenya. Okay. So I agree, there's still some way to go in terms of ensuring that this is an effective program. I also noted one thing, that there is heavily reliance on donor funding in that project.
Yeah.
We saw what happened to USAID, right? They pulled out, and several of our partners also ended up losing some project funds. You know, it halted a lot of things because of them pulling out. So if we continue relying on donors to fund our children, what happens when they're not there? That's something to think about. And I also wanted to mention about the finance bill. We didn't have time to talk much about it, but there are also some things I saw that are of concern. There's this East Africa Community Trade Preference Agreement that has been there, but what the finance bill is introducing is excise duty. And that means goods we're importing from our neighbors, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, are going to be imposed an excise duty. What does this mean? Do we all know that we import eggs from Uganda? We import electricity, umeme, from Uganda. So if we start imposing taxes on their products, what is going to happen? They're going to retaliate. So even us, when we're exporting our stuff, they're going to impose some excise duty on that. So that was something that was very alarming for me. However, on the flip side, there are also some good things. I saw there was removal of VAT for kidney dialysis machines. So that means that the cost for dialysis is going to go down for the people who suffer from that disease. And then there was also excise duty removed from fruit processing plants. We all know of the Kalamba fruit processing plant in Makueni, which processes mangoes, right? So what is this going to do? It's also going to encourage other counties to start fruit processing plants, which is also going to end up growing our economy. So apart from the mobile thing and other things that we've come across, there are some good things in store in the finance bill. I didn't want to mention about the Mutumba. I think it's propaganda because the The Waziri also came and said there's nothing like that. Remember, we said there are 2 finance bills that are out there. We will only come to know of the true one once it is tabled in Parliament, which is what we are all waiting for. So let's keep the propaganda at bay and deal with the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Eve, maybe just to let the audience know, today we are very big on the budget. We have another forum for finance bill next week, which we will ensure that we onboard you. So I'm just trying to say, we are not very big on finance bill today. So we are most looking at the budget. Over to you.
Okay, I think I'll respond to the health question and the mental health thing.
Okay.
We already said that the budget process begins way earlier. So priorities had already been identified. Those priorities will be getting the bigger portions. So I think as a country, we haven't acknowledged mental health as a problem that needs money, right? Because if we look at health, the priorities that they were inclined to, there was strengthening preventive and promotive health, community health systems, professional standards, and then accelerating QHC, which some part of it falls under that, but purely we need to look at it as a standalone problem. So I think at the moment, for this financial year, it won't receive any priority since it wasn't identified initially. But I think as we go to the next cycle, even when we are preparing the BPS, that's where we are identifying priorities. We need to come out strongly and say for us, under health, this is a priority. That will determine how much it will get when the allocations are being done. And then on the education issue, Nelly had raised in terms of the data gaps and how we are seeing one report saying we have more learners enrolled, but what we are budgeting for, it's a smaller number. One is Kenyans, historically we have been letting the government have the easy way. Kama hawaprovide, tutajiprovidea. Right? Security, tutajiekea. Barabara, tutajijengea. Education, we will get private schools for our children. We will get private health insurance. I think that's where the gap is. Because the government now will only budget for the students in public institutions. Who is causing them not to cater for our own children? It's us, you know. So one, for public services, na nitaleta kidogo economics hapa. I know there are a number of economists here. By nature of some goods, it's only best the government provides them. So, but by us now introducing the bit of private provision and whatnot, we are letting the government off the hooks. So one, it's a challenge for us. Let us demand for these services. Let us not take the easier way of saying, hainihusu, wacha nipeleke mtoto private school, let me get my private insurance, but you sort of pay double paying for this service. Because one, you've paid taxes that are going to health, and again, you're paying for your health insurance. You've paid for education under your taxes, but you're still taking your child to private. So when we look at this, we can look at them at goods, but they are rights. Water is a right, education is a right, health is a right. Let us demand for them by not giving the government the easier way out of solving our own problems. Right now, I'm sure tushaangalia weather forecast, tujue venye tutapambana na floods. Who should sort the sanitation issue? Serikali, si ndio? But sisi tunajua wacha ninunue mwavuli, ninunue gumboots, tununue boats. Tuende home mapema. Let's not get solutions. Demand for the service because you've already paid for it, right? I think I'll conclude at that.
You go last talk. Thank you. Me, I'll just tackle one area, but sincerely speaking, I hear you guys. I hear the pain of Kenyans because I'm a Kenyan. And when Madam Lady here speaks with a lot of passion, it tells you to the extent in which this thing is pinching us as Kenyans. Public participation is a very important tool. Our constitution, for those who have gotten the latitude to read it, if you look at Article 1, talks about the sovereignty of the people. All powers belongs to us. Ndio? Ama? Then it goes further and says that power can be exercised in two angles. Either directly or indirectly. We should be able to know that. In our context, these powers are always exercised indirectly. We have given the representatives the powers to do what is absolutely right. Now the question would be, whatever they are doing, is it the right thing to do? That would be the other side. But the point is, we are working within the frames of the Constitution, within the dictates of the Constitution. And that's why I said our Constitution is the backbone. It is the one upon which generates even the budget that we are talking about. And it goes further to anchor that. If you look at Article 174C, for those who have the advantage of perhaps looking through it, will tell you that you must be involved and engaged. There must be public participation on any matter that concerns you as a citizen. Isn't budget a concern to you? So the question is, do they conduct it? And even if they conduct it, the question would be, what are the parameters? The mode in which my brother was alluding to in the mid-morning, that you get information around 1 a.m. in the morning that the meeting is supposed to be done. If that kind of an event takes place, don't you find it is a way for us now to come up and draft a document opposing that kind of an engagement? Because it is outside the constitutional framework. There must be proper and early communication in relations to public participation. So we cannot run away from the Constitution. That is the guiding document that is making us have all these things that we are doing here today, and even subsequent years. And remember, I said that the budget will always be there. The government will come, will go. The personalities that are here, the persons that are leading those governments, they will come, they will go. But the point is, are we doing the right thing that is supposed to be done? Is it within the constitutional framework? Even the budget that we are talking about right now, whatever allocations has been made, and I hear what Madam is talking about when you come up talk about the data and the mismatch that comes up with that kind of a data. Is that money going direct to the person that is supposed to get that money? In the education sector, in the health sector, even in the infrastructure. We've heard they have reduced, actually under the levy, Madam is here can confirm, the levy, is it the transport and levy fund in their infrastructure, barabara? They have reduced from 3 shillings to 1.5 shillings in terms of what is going to be collected in that forever. But I'm not going to go to the finance issue. We are talking about the budget. So you as a citizen, participation is the backbone, again, within the Constitution. You must make sure we participate, and where necessary, we draft these documents and make follow-ups. That would be the only thing. Otherwise, nothing else will change apart from the use of this Constitution. Stop it up there.
Yeah, finally, James, as we really need to close.
This is the final take.
Yes.
You're not coming back to us, guys.
No, I mean, we have to close this session, but we are still around here. Our experts will be around here. We can engage them one-on-one, because I mean.
I am not an
clearly.
expert.
You are.
You are an expert in this context.
So what the other experts did to us.
We will come to you even after this session. So give your closing remarks, and then we can take those conversations even beyond this session.
They have really given us a bad name. Sasa sahi wito professional. Well, I don't know. I have 15 solutions and 5 quotes. I don't know which one I should go for.
15
We
solutions?
don't have time for 15 solutions.
So give us 2 big solutions and the quotes.
How about I give you 5 and 5 quotes?
No. 2 mother solutions and 2 quotes.
Priority.
I got you where I
Rate them.
wanted. So for the first time, people are saying not solutions. Wow. This is amazing.
Mother solutions.
Well, out of my many solutions, well, you give me like a second or two because there are many. It's hard to pin one, but let me just get to something that has not been discussed in a long time, I think. tunajengewa barabara na wa China. The allegations they are prisoners. Sisi hatuwezi jenga barabara. Hatuwezi jenga bridges. I think we need to have a candid conversation about financing our own contracts, unionizing our engineers and our experts. Tuko na civil engineers, structural engineers, na engineers wengi sana wenye wanaweza tusaidia kwa mambo ya construction, building na hiyo mambo yote. We're not building our own roads, our own bridges and stuff. That's saddening. And we are oozing out brain drain every day. Watu professionals qualified hapa. Mtu hatari sana anaenda kuwa security man UAE. Mwingine hatari sana anaenda kuwa house help. It is just pathetic. I think the Ministry of Cooperatives need to unionize engineers. Tuacha tujengewe manyumba za serikali na wao, tujengewe barabara na wao. Kwani we don't trust them? Wale engineers wa UN, amuoni wanaweza fanya kazi mzuri? As for the last, as in for the second solution, well, you don't want many. That's sad. I think we need to have youth-targeted reforms on matters budgeting, because the young people are not included robustly and proactively in the discussions on budgeting before we get to the tail end. We are not in those committees. We are nowhere to be seen. Sisi tuitwe public participation kama kawaida vile nimewaambia, tukuje tuongee mingi alafu hiyo story ishia hapo. As we get to the quotes, I'm building up towards something. The first quote, Malcolm X. The future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Franz Fanon. Well, you are Franz Fanon mnajua, yeah, each generation and stuff. Nelson Mandela. Change will not come if we wait for some other people and some other time. Campaigns are not won by ideas alone, but ideas backed by resources. I guess I have 2 to go. Those are 3, aren't they 3? They have 2 to go. A generation that does not organize will always be governed by those who do. That's why they are winning in the by-elections. Numbers without structure are noise. Structure turns numbers into power. I will just give you one bonus one. You cannot outvote an organized power with unorganized anger. This is why I appeal to the young people to find a different way to mobilize, to organize. Bwana, let us not pretend that Rigathi Gachagua did not buy a political party. So what is stopping us from buying one? Well, there's a flowery language around it, co-option, convincing founders and so on. So why are we running to Jubilee? Why are we running to UDA? Why are we running to DCP? Why not form our own party? Why not buy one? It's only 5 million shillings. Why not buy one? We would really rally ourselves under one party.
Okay.
There are 70 briefcase parties in Kenya. Parties that have never won any seat at MCA. Ziko tu by entrepreneurial Kenyans who are waiting for a quick 5 million shillings. Alafu mbadilishe jina kama ya Gachagua, muite vile mnataka. Mweke party colors zenye mnataka. You organize within that party. The Kenyans in the diaspora are willing to support mobilization and reasonable organization. Same as Kenyans in this country. Hata our millennials wenye mnaona ni kama wataki change. But they don't see us doing the right thing. They don't see us making the right efforts. They are saying we are making so much noise and we are disorganized, which is true. Now let us take the flag and decide to do things differently. We are 14 months from the next election, if I'm not wrong. We have time. Morara did this thing in 3 months. In 3 months, he had raised enough to clear off all his debts and come up with probably a good idea of a party. But we can take up from where he lost. We have 14 months to do this. Let's assume we'll have 3 months za waste time. That leaves us with 11 months. 11 months manze tukiamua tu chama moja ya vijana na tufundraise hiyo chama from amongst ourselves na from Kenyans in the diaspora. You will be surprised what you can achieve. Mimi idea kila mtu kutaka kwenda independent. Mimi hapo si huko.
Thank you, James. And thank you so much, my panelists. I think lastly, as we close, I just wanted to make just a small clarification. Yes, we pay our debts. We pay debts. What we don't know is how much we pay, the interest rates, the conditionalities, and all that. And those are the issues we have been raising. So transparency is such a big problem. So we find ourselves, we are not able to track. So how much have we paid? How much do we have left? Because we have no clear picture of how much we owe. I think I needed to make that clarification. And lastly, we remember some time back we had our launch of the People's Audit. It has quite a number of issues that have been raised and solutions on some of the things we can do as citizens. I think we need to put in the work and just keep at it consistently. Eventually, we will get results. And lastly, the type of leaders we elect, it will keep coming back to us. So whether we form political parties, whether we form as youth organized, if we are not electing the right leaders, we will still find ourselves in these situations. And we need to participate in governance, and we need to know that politics shape everything in our economy. So thank you very much. It looks like we needed more time, but as I mentioned, we will have another forum on finance bill next week. We will send the communication out, and we hope to engage even better.
Thank you.
Sana, have a good day.
Thank you, Angela. As the official photographer, please take a picture of our panelists and our moderator as they step down. But I really do believe that this has been an interesting conversation. Angela has finished. You guys can stand and then you stand. I think sitting here for 2 hours is enough. It is torturous enough. But what I was saying is, Angela, when she finished, she said something about politics. And I want us to leave this room knowing that our budget is a political tool. So ukisema mi spendi politics, sijui unaongelea nini? Kwa sababu even, I'll go to my former workplace, even the man you choose to date as a young woman is influenced by the politics of the day. Do you agree? For the young men, even the woman you choose or the women you choose is influenced by the politics of the day. So let's try and find interest in the politics of the day. There were three things or comments that were mentioned during the plenary session, and I wanted to say one or two, and this one goes to the rapporteurs of the day. The young man in the maroon coat asked a very interesting thing that as civil society we normally ask government to do. Where are the reports from the public participation? So he asked us, how is he going to follow up on the findings of this forum? Please, rapporteurs and ourselves, TISA, the work is on us to find ways to communicate what this forum has been able to generate. The second one, again from him, was on the creative economy. And I think that one I will tie with the conversations that have been going on here. Most of us are talking about agriculture, health, MSMEs, and creatives. And if you look at the budget estimates and the whole document, which is very long, they have priority areas. And all those areas that we are talking about are listed there except housing and settlement, and I think something they call digital superhighway, which is tagged with the creative economy. However, the actual allocations say a different thing. If ametuambia agriculture for the third year in a row continues to drop, but agriculture was also a major aspect of better. Sindio? So it's like tunaongea na mdomo moja na ingine inatoa. So that's what I wanted to remind us. They have been prioritized on paper. But as we've said, numbers do not translate to the actual service. It does not translate to the picture. So let's do the work of making sure it translates to something. It might not give me a full human being like myself, but it might give me a head. Then I start figuring out, though we've been warned here, that we shouldn't give government an easy way by trying to build the rest of the body once they give you a head. So leave here knowing the work of getting the head is on us. And the last question, which now goes to all of us. Unfortunately, I have the mics here, so I don't know what I'm going to do. But the question is, we keep on saying this budget doesn't feel us. Sindio, what would a budget that feels us look like? Did you get the question? We are saying the budget does not look us. Na tunasema tunatumia terms citizen budget. Mulamba alisema a national nini ya kutengeneza budget, sindio? So when we say it, sisi tunataka yetu. Hii yetu itakaje? Tom, help me with these mics. And this, please, mi sija invite comments. Nataka uniambie tu hiyo budget, priority yako ni gani? Tunasonga. Sawa sawa. Hiyo yenye inatukaa iko na nini? This will help Tom. So someone else can do the passing of the mic.
Hi, my name is Gitaranga Esther, Binti Rising Initiative. I think a budget that looks us is a budget, number one, that does not use big jargons to confuse citizens from understanding the actual thing that they're trying to communicate. And a budget that looks us is a budget that directly communicates to our issues. For example, they talk about education budget, but then they're not breaking it down to the security of these kids, to the school fees, the tuition, the direct messaging of what they're saying.
So I have picked one. You have said two things, but the other one you've said does not. So I don't know what it looks like. The second one is directly speaks to the issues. When you're giving what it looks like, say it, not what it does not look like. The second one?
I think a budget that would look like us is a budget that would start from us to the government and not from the government to us.
Bottom up. Yes, Beverly.
Beverly Capert, a budget that looks us is one that focuses more on income generating than administrative.
Good. Yes. The lady in, I don't know that color.
Hi, I'm Christine from PLP Party. One that ensures that our children go to school, that our education sector is well catered for, ensuring that free primary education is actually free primary education, and one that focuses on rebuilding or kufufua our dead industries like the pyrethrum and cotton.
Okay, I have this guy here. Where's the other mic? Who has the other mic?
Okay, thank you. My name is Timothy Kongo Wamboi. I am a disability inclusion and education technology advocate, and I'm from Thika and a student at Bunge Mashinani.
Okay.
So first and foremost, I want to start by saying that today I am missing a part of us, that is the interpretation, because the people watching this whole thing will not understand. So for next time, please ensure that you have a sign language interpreter to be inclusive of everyone and not leaving anyone behind.
Noted.
Oh yeah, the budget that is for us is a budget that first focuses on the mwananchi, is inclusive as well, because in terms of capitation and what I have seen, I am so worried about the young persons with disability in schools, because if the capitation that we have seen for education that is being allocated in this BPS and the budget, then it means that most of the kids with disability will not be able to go to school, because the materials, accessibility, and also in terms of education requirement, it is not budgeted for this. So another thing is that we don't need people to think for us. but we want people to think with us to make the budget.
Bottom up again. If you are saying something that has been said, please pass the mic, okay?
Okay, mine is just a budget that will bridge the gap on basic quality service delivery.
This is the first time you've spoken that short. Yes, next.
Everyone else? A budget for us is a budget that is all inclusive and supports innovation.
Okay, thank you. Inclusive and supports innovation. We are done. John, ungeachwa nyuma.
A budget that is gender responsive. Yeah.
Gender responsive budget. No one sijaacha mtu, si ndio? For me, a budget that is us, the development side is higher than what we always see. So that is what I would want to see. Nikiona hiyo improvement, at least nianze kuona ni wapi imeenda. But I really want to close this by saying thank you. Thank you to everyone who showed up. Thank you for your participation and engagement. We have taken note of the faults that, or I don't know how we forgot about it, but the sign language thing will definitely be taken care of. We tried with everything physical, and somehow what we talk about inclusion ikapita, but we really do apologize. For next week, as has been said, our focus will be on the finance bill. We hope that you engage, and before then, we will find ways through our social media team and our communication department to be able to share findings or things that are coming out from this meeting. So that then, even in terms of the documentation, tumongelea hapa misinformation, right? So through our pages, we will try and find the right link for the specific documents that we have talked about, so that you get the right ones as of the website that we speak about. And then hopefully we continue to break the information together. Someone said here that the economists, some nature of goods, reward provided by government, that line. We will not be able to do what government, or we will not be able to take over the mandate of government. As civil societies, as activists, as advocates, whatever thing you do for the good of the people. But in one way or another, we have to come in and fill that gap that is there. But as you fill that gap, please remember, we still need the government. So the approach is, as you fight, also try to work together. If they are unable to break these things, we pia jitokeze, I can help you break it. We hold conversation, tuite kina Eve wakuja wa break this to the mwananchi that really need it. Beyond that, I have nothing more to say, but say thank you and ask us to stand up for the national anthem, because we didn't do that as we started. And of course, I will need a young person to help. Nilisoma ile wakati yenye tulikuwa tunaham. Yes.
So let's stand upright, and you'll help me in this. O God of all creation, our land and nation, justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace and liberty, plenty be found within our border. The East African anthem. Twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguvu. yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Thank you.
The national anthem was intentional, so that as you leave here, please plant some hope where you are going, okay? Have a wonderful day. Lunch is being served at Care